his first power play goal of the year. And it gives the Blues a 1-0 lead with 5:15 to play here in period number 1.
That's Chris Kerber on the call right there, and that is Oscar Sundqvist on the goal, who will be back for the next 2 years, $1.5 million per season. That has been announced by the St. Louis Blues. Alex, this is a question that we had asked previously of, do you bring Oscar Sundqvist back? Do you think about maybe trading him at the deadline? What do you do here? Because he has become maybe not a vital piece of what the Blues do, but a pretty damn important one. He's a fourth-line centerman who knows exactly what his role is. And the interesting part about Sonny's role on this team in 2024 for the Blues has been he's on that second power play for you now. Now, I hope that that is not a long-term plan for the Blues. You'd like to upgrade from Sonny in that role. But for right now, if you can get a guy that's great in the locker room, knows exactly what his role is as a fourth-line centerman for you, can help you on the PK and the power play when needed, that's a guy that's absolutely worth $1.5 million. I love this extension by the Blues. It was announced just a little bit ago. 2 years, $3 million in total. Oscar Sundqvist sticking around for the next couple of seasons.
Let's do a little experiment together, guys. Well, not that kind of experiment, BK. When I ask you who are the players that when the puck drops, you know exactly what you're going to get from them, who comes to mind?
Neighbors.
Yeah.
Sonny.
Yeah.
Thomas.
Yeah. Parayko.
Kind of.
Gold. Hey.
Yeah,
No, Parayko, yeah. No, Parayko,
Yeah.
I agree with Thomas.
But most of the time, better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The reason I'm getting at with this is that there are a lot of guys on this team that on a nightly basis, I don't know what they're going to bring to the table. And Oscar Sundqvist is one of those guys. And I know a lot of people might look at this and say, you're paying $1.5 million for Oscar Sundqvist. That's not worth it. That's the going rate for fourth-line players.
Do people believe that?
Yeah.
Are we seeing
I've already
that
gotten
elsewhere?
a couple of texts about that.
Really?
Like, that's way too much money to pay Oscar Sundqvist, who doesn't do much.
It's $1.5 million. Who cares?
I think people
He's a good player.
I think people have PTSD now with Doug Armstrong giving money to players, specifically old players, because of how it's looked these last couple of years. But like I was just looking at this, I think two of the best fourth-line players in the National Hockey League right now are on the New York Islanders. Casey Cizikas and Cal Clutterbuck. Those are two guys
love a good Clutterbuck.
Love Clutterbuck. It looks like my house sometimes. I think those guys dictate play, and with the New York Islanders, they're pivotal pieces in a locker room. Cal Clutterbuck is making $1.75 million, and he's 36 years old. Casey Cizikas is making $2.5 million, and he's 33 years old.
That's the going rate.
Yeah.
If you've got a guy that can help you, if they can play up in your lineup or help you on special teams, you're paying about $1.5 million.
Penalty kill, you know he's there for the power play for you. He can play centerman role. He's had like 200-something face-off wins this season. He's done very good. And the other factor into paying this guy $1.5 million, at least tinfoil theory, I believe Doug Armstrong looks at that locker room and says, man, we can't bring young players in here if we don't have players like Oscar Sundqvist around.
I just think there's no downside to this. Like, I'm trying to imagine what the worst case scenario is. Okay, so Sonny gets hurt or something. Okay, it's $1.5 million. This is not a deal that can, like, make or break you in any significant way. There's only upside here. Sonny's probably going to be worth, if he's fully healthy, $2.5 million next year.
Yeah.
If he's hurt, nothing. He's worth nothing. And you wasted, quote unquote, $1.5 million. Worst case scenario, he's a good dude in the locker room that helps you out on the PK. Like, this is an objectively good deal. I can't imagine people, if you're upset about this today, I don't know what to tell you, man. Like, you're just looking for reasons to be upset. The Blues have made some real mistakes when it comes to contract. Look at the blue line. Look at the no trade clauses that are up and down, littered across this roster right now. They know it. We know it. Everybody can acknowledge it. There have been mistakes that have been made contract-wise. This is not one of them. Nope. This is a good day for the Blues. This is a good move by the Blues. When you re-signed Alexei Toropchenko, good move, man. You got to make that kind of a move. It's not all about what do you do in your top nine. You also have to fill out the fourth line. And, Alex, I don't know how long you've been trying to convince me that the fourth line is an important piece of what you're doing roster-wise.
I don't know how long you've pushed back that the fourth line doesn't matter.
And I've been saying, no, good sir. Get the goal scorers. And the truth is, it's probably somewhere in the middle. Like, is it important? Yeah. Is it the most important thing? No. But the Blues have apparently acknowledged, okay, we didn't put quite enough emphasis on finding out a way to fill out our roster. And now they have. For the next 2 seasons, you know what you don't have to worry about anymore? The fourth line. You don't have to worry about, are they going to be players that give you the right kind of effort every night? Because Nathan Walker, Oscar Sundqvist, and Alexei Toropchenko, those three players making a combined $3 million, $3.5 million for the next 2 seasons per year, that is your fourth line. Yep. You can set it and forget it. You don't have to worry about it any longer. Now we can focus on the top 9 again.
Yeah. You need to have these types of players, and I don't know who the head coach is going to be next year, but you got to have players that you can trust in certain situations, and Oscar Sundqvist is that guy. Your fourth line is solidified now. You don't have to worry about it, and now when you implement the Snuggerudes, the Zach Deans, more of Zach Bolduc this season and next season, those are the guys that I want my younger players to be around.
For sure.
And if you pluck those guys out of the roster, I think you have way too much inconsistency on this team for the younger guys to look at and be like, well, if this guy's doing that, I can get away with it.
Yeah, and if you if you did decide to go the route of trading Oscar Sundqvist at this deadline, you get like a 5th round pick?
Maybe.
Well, yeah, you're not going to get, it's just a shot in the dark. And the odds are you're not going to end up with even a 4th line caliber player like an Oscar Sundqvist. And if you'd say, well, you could have traded him and re-signed him, well, he may get to test the open market, or maybe he likes the spot he gets traded to and ends up signing there. So I think this was the right move by Doug Armstrong. I wondered if he was going to trade him just to open up a spot. But you know what? I like the fact that they can go into next season and say, hey, here's what our 4th line already is.
Yeah. I like that, and I like that this is also a tradable contract still. Like, if next year the Blues get to the deadline and somebody really needs a 4th line centerman who can come in and bring that grit to their team, guess what? There's no harm, no foul in maybe moving him at that point. Maybe at that point, Alex, next year we get to the deadline, it's like, oh, Zach Dean has emerged. He's a really good player in the AHL. He's ready for his opportunity in the NHL. And then he comes up to the Blues, gets an opportunity there, and maybe he displaces Oscar Sundqvist and moves Sonny to the wing or pushes Sonny to a place where the Blues do decide to trade him next year. Nothing else. This is a great insurance policy.
Yeah.
It's a really good insurance policy for the Blues, so I like that they got this done now. This is once again Doug Armstrong saying, I'm going to get some of my offseason work done prior to the trade deadline. I'm guessing this was a situation where Sonny said, or where you had Army say to Sonny, hey, we've got offers. I would like to keep you here. Mm-hmm. Is that something that you want? And if so, can we get a contract done now? Because I don't want to get to the offseason and then suddenly, instead of us getting an asset for you, we lose you for nothing. What are your plans? What do you want? And it's clear Sonny told him, I want to be here.
I'm glad you said that, because I think the offseason moves in terms of re-signing guys are done now for Doug Armstrong. It was the only one I think you had to worry about. You're not bringing back Kapanen. You're not bringing back Blay. It's going to be an easy contract negotiation with Alexandrov. You're not bringing back Scandella. And Perunovic is going to be an easy negotiation if he's even here. You go to the offseason now and say, all we got to worry about is trades. All we got to worry about is making changes to this roster because we've signed the guys that we needed to do. And frankly, the last couple of seasons, the focus has been get some guys re-signed. Now you don't have to worry about that.
Now you can just go into the offseason. You know exactly what you've got on your books as well. Yep. This is a set in stone. This is the amount of money that we're going to be paying him. So it's a smart move. The other big move that we're waiting on still is what happens with Pavel Buchnevich. The trade deadline is, I feel like, a pretty active one, all things considered, in the NHL, especially for us still being today about, 27 hours away.
I'm worried T-Bone and I aren't going to have anything to talk about tomorrow.
Everybody relax.
Everybody calm down.
Noah Hanifin has been dealt. We'll talk a little bit more about that coming up here in just a minute. He is going to the Las Vegas Golden Knights because they acquire every star that is possibly available at the deadline.
Alex, how they do that.
The 2 top 6 forwards that we've LTIR, baby, it's a hell of a thing. The 2 top 6 forwards that we've been talking about as being available all deadline have not been moved yet. Jake Gensel, it sounds like teams are hesitant to meet the price for a guy that's been hurt and is on an expiring deal, so he's a rental for wherever he decides to go. And Pavel Buchnevich, who is still available for teams. It sounds like Army is willing to retain salary if that's what needs to happen for him to get his asking price, but nobody has met it yet. Where are we at? Let's give an update. We're 1 day away from the deadline. Where are we at with what we think will happen with the Booch market?
I'm still 50-50, man, and I know people don't want to hear it. You want one side or the other, but I think the Blues will trade him if a team meets the asking price. And guess what? I'm locked in on Carolina, because if Carolina doesn't get Jake Gensel, they entered desperation mode because everybody in the East improved. You're talking about the Florida Panthers improving. Boston might be getting Elias Lindholm. That's going to make them better. The Rangers just acquired a depth piece. Toronto just got some really good assets on the defensive side. Carolina can't score goals. So if I'm them, I'm going to get desperate if I don't get Jake Gensel, and that's where Buchnevich comes in. But, man, I really only feel like Carolina is the team that's going to buck up and pay the price that Doug Armstrong's asking for. So that's where I'm 50-50.
I don't think he gets dealt. I think the asking price is probably going to end up being too high for a lot of teams because I don't think they want to give that up for a second-line winger in Pavel Buchnevich. I think in the offseason he will be traded when that asking price comes down because it's just a year of control compared to year and a half right now. I just don't see anybody meeting that price. I don't know if anybody's going to get desperate enough. I've seen Carolina be in a spot where I thought they had to be desperate before at a trade deadline, and they don't pull off the move. So I just don't think anybody's going to do it.
Man, if you're Carolina, though, right now you're probably the sixth best team in the Eastern Conference. And, I mean, you're talking about another first-round exit if you're them. I mean, you potentially match up with Florida in the first round.
Yeah, I saw an interview with one of the players on the roster earlier today, and he was asked, how would you describe the season this year for the Carolina Hurricanes? And he said adversity. It's been a lot of adversity for them because they've had ups and downs, a lot of injuries that they've been dealing with early on in the year. I think they're the team that has to make a move for one of these two players, and it comes down to which one do you get? Do you get Gensel? Do you get Buchnevich? They are a team that very rarely goes all in for any kind of a rental player. So it's why I've said all along, I think they make a lot more sense for Buchnevich than they do for Jake Gensel. They also, in my opinion, match what the Blues are looking for. If they are willing to dangle a Natchez in one of these kinds of deals, man, I think that's something that Doug Armstrong has to be willing to listen to. Like, that is a potential top 6 center for you for the long haul. He's like 25, 26 years old. You could sign him long term. I think he makes a lot of sense here in St. Louis, and I think Pavel Buchnevich makes a lot of sense for the Carolina Hurricanes. It's just a matter of whether or not the teams agree on the value of those two respective players. So I think this all comes down to, where does Jake Gensel go? If Jake Gensel ends up in Carolina, I'm not sure that the Blues are going to have an obvious partner in a deal for Pavel Buchnevich. That being said, the Vegas Golden Knights can never be written off in any of these kinds of deals. We want to get to that coming up next. 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line to get involved in the show. The YouTube chat is off and running over on the Graveyard, youtube.com/101ESPN STL. The studio cams are powered by the Air Alliance team. With Alex and T-Bone, I'm BK. Coming up next, Vegas made a deal yesterday for a top pairing defenseman in Noah Hanifin. Would you have matched the asking price for Hanifin if you were Doug Armstrong? We'll talk about that and what it means for the Vegas Golden Knights in relation to Pavel Buchnevich next year on 101 ESPN. Omaha!
Where?
We got a bit of an audible here alongside Alex and T-Bone on BK. It sounds like the Blues have made a move. No, not at the trade deadline. You crazy kids. You crazy kids. You thought they were going to do that today, huh? No, sirree. Doug Armstrong's waiting until tomorrow. We'll see what he does on the deadline.
BK's out.
But the Blues do have another game coming up this evening against the New Jersey Devils. That's on the road. Pre-game with Alex will begin at 5 o'clock. And Alex...
What?
I have not seen the updated lines yet. You told me. I went to the restroom because baby boy has his third cold in the last month, and I have also had my third cold in the last
you're
month.
Here today.
Had to go get some Kleenexes.
It's like a faucet over there.
It's ridiculous, dude. Absolutely ridiculous. When you have a faucet that's like the size of, I don't even know.
It's not even a faucet.
It's tree trunk.
It's like if I go in my backyard and take a knife and cut open my above ground pool, that's what it looks like right now.
That's essentially my beak that is currently dripping. So,
I'm just excited about the Battlehawks.
The Blues have made a move with their top line. They've juggled up the lines today.
That's right.
And you told me...
Got it right in front of me.
You have the information on what they have done. Now, we know Jake Neighbors is ineligible to play on that line.
Do we?
So,
question mark?
I'm going to play a game that we did, I think, 3 times in our history where we were like, hey, let's play a game of Guess the Lines, and then we never really did it.
We did it for a year.
They never switched up the line, so we were like, this is stupid. We're not going to do this.
You want the open?
Sure,
we got the open?
Yeah, we got the open.
Let's
Here
play
we
a game
go.
of Guess the Lines.
Lace them up. It's time to Guess the Lines with BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN.
Let's go.
See, we got an open made and everything. Do we have a bed for this?
Well, we used to. I don't know where it is anymore.
Is it sponsored?
Yeah, I'm sure it is. Congratulations to the Air Alliance team. They sponsored the studio cam, so they'll get
Congratulations to Nose Plumbing.
I'm guessing Robert Thomas is still a top line player for the Blues.
That would be, well, you know what? It really depends on how you look at the lines, but you know what? Thomas is one of them.
No.
I guess it depends on how you want to look at your best line.
Is Booch with Thomas?
He is not.
Really?
He is not.
Cairo with Thomas.
Cairo is with Thomas.
Okay.
What would you have done if I would have said no there?
I would have said maybe you're right. Maybe that's not the top line anymore.
Congratulations.
So we know Neighbors can't play with them. I'm gonna guess it's Toropchenko.
Oh God! Look, I don't like Bannister's moves, but that would be a bad move. No,
Okay.
Toropchenko's not up there. Toropchenko's actually on your 4th line, surprisingly.
Good. Sod?
Sod is up there.
Okay. That was my original guess, but I was like, nah, that's too easy. Okay. Sod. Cool.
Sod.
Cool.
Sod. So
It's a lot of speed.
So they said, is it?
Yeah.
Is it?
Sod's got good speed, man.
Oh, yeah, sure.
I think we view Sod differently.
Who's retrieving the puck when that puck goes in deep?
Yeah, nobody.
Yeah.
I'm not.
Oh, so you're just gonna score with
I
nobody
didn't say
possessing
he uses it well, but he's got speed. Kyrie's fast too. I don't see him getting in on the
You
forecheck
got
very
that
often.
line. What's the other line?
Okay. Second line will be Shin, Booch,
Yeah.
and Neighbors.
There you go.
Do not like that line.
I think that's your top line.
Do not like the way that they've assembled that line.
That line is more of an assembled line that could work, though, because you've got a centerman, you've got a power forward, and you've got a puck shooter. I don't understand why we just can't flip Shen and Thomas and say, here we go, boys. Let's go on a run.
I would just do Neighbors on the top line. For the 100th time, put him with Robert Thomas, Bannister!
Be a big man! Be a big man! Be about
Sorry.
it!
I
just don't understand this.
Feeling a little under the weather.
And they got Bolduc, Hayes, and Kapanen, which that's a disaster.
Oh, no.
That's a disaster waiting to happen.
Yippee!
No, Janet, not yippee.
All right, so, I'm excited.
No, I'm not excited. Here's the lines that it should be, which, again, I'm not the coach. I don't know what I'm talking about. Thomas, Neighbors, Buchnevich, Kairu, Shen, Sod, Bolduc, Hayes, Toropchenko. It's that simple. I know what you're trying to accomplish. You're putting your 4th line back together.
I don't
You're putting your 4th line back together. Toropchenko, you don't want up there. I don't know why Kapanen's even in this lineup. Frankly, I'd be going down and getting Adam Gaudette to put up there.
Here's my thing. Like, you're playing Bolduc 7, 8, 9 minutes a game right now. He's barely participating in these games. Like, technically, he's there. He's on the ice, but not very often.
Are you sure?
Yeah.
You're sure he's on the ice?
He's playing like 3 minutes per period, which... Like, when you break it down like that, it's like, holy crap, man. He's barely getting on the ice at all. And so, if you're going to have that be the circumstances in which he's playing, but just drop him down to the fourth line.
You know what?
Honestly, put him with Sonny and Walker. It's not a typical fourth line by any stretch of the imagination, but you clearly don't trust him. So put him with two guys that you do trust. You've shown that you trust Toropchenko, and honestly, he's played pretty well on the third line role. I would just do that.
Why don't we stop speculating about this and go to the man himself?
Okay, sure.
Because
Drew Bannister, why are you doing this?
Well, I just think we can't just keep going back to the same old. Like we're going to make some, not that we have to make adjustments on what we do have to do play-wise, but we have to be better on our forecheck, like I've said before. But, I think, overall we have to get, more scoring from our whole group. But I think this helps, both lines, at least our top two lines, and maybe a little bit different look, and we can find some chemistry there.
It doesn't help your top two lines.
I thought
that was a good explanation.
No, I think that was a generic explanation and not really explaining. And so that's.
I agree with him. You did need to change things up. At 5-on-5, you're not good enough right now. But all he did was flipped Brandon Saad and Pavel Buchnevich.
Who I would argue Pavel Buchnevich is a better 5-on-5 player than Brandon Saad.
Yeah.
And I want my better 5-on-5 player with my best centerman.
But you guys know where I'm at. If I were to make the case for Brandon Saad on that top line, Alex, we have always viewed Brandon Saad a little differently, the two of us, right? Mm-hmm. In terms of how he plays, what he is, what his role is, etc. But you've always talked about him as a quote-unquote power forward, the way that he plays, not size-wise, but the way that he plays. If he is that, then this is the role that we were talking about with Jake Neighbors on that top line. Now, I would say I don't think he plays that way. I don't view him as a power forward. I think he's a rush player. I think he's at his best when he's getting up in the rush and trying to use his speed, which I do think he is still a really fast player, even though we don't see it a lot. He's more of a burst than a sustained speed guy. Like, he's not Patrick Kane in his prime, but when you get him on the rush, he's pretty fast, man. It's kind of like Nick Leddy in that regard, honestly. But that just means that top line is going to be even more of a rush line now than it was previously. I will also say there have been times in the past where I've liked what it looks like with Thomas, Kyrou, and Saad. But that was a couple of years ago now. I just think Jake Neighbors fits more with that top line. If you're going to have somebody park himself in front of the net, if that's the role that you want him to play, if you want somebody that can retrieve pucks, put him into the right areas, do the dirty play, like all of these different things, I think the one guy in your top nine right now, winger-wise, that fits that profile, and you only have one of them, it's Jake Neighbors. And I continue to be befuddled as to why they are unwilling to put him on that top line. It doesn't make sense to me because Braden Shin, if you want another guy that does kind of fit some of those criterias, even though I think he's been not quite the same player this year as he has been in the past, he is a guy that does some of those things. You don't need both of those players on the same line. So that's why I'm confused by it. That's why I don't think that it makes a lot of sense. Where are you at on this?
So you remember my numbers I gave yesterday about Neighbors playing with Thomas and Buchnevich? That those guys were like 2 points away from being point per games player. It was 5-8, 7-8 for Buchnevich and Neighbors. And then with Kyrou and Shen, it was 5-8 and 6-8. Guys, Saad, Thomas, and Kyrou have played together this season. They did it for 6 games back in the beginning of the year when Craig Berube was here. Guess how many games they scored points in? 1.
Yeah.
They scored points in 1 game. Thomas and Kyrou went pointless on that line. Thomas scored on the empty net where they pulled the goaltender at 6-on-5. That was it. They did not score points other than when Brandon Saad scored 2 goals against the Pittsburgh Penguins. And Thomas and Kyrou picked up an assist on that one. And Thomas, I believe, I'm pulling it back up. Thomas got an assist, a secondary assist with Saad in the third period with Kapanen. I know what you're trying to do, but why are we avoiding putting Neighbors with them? I know that they're going with pairs, and the pairs are Thomas and Kyrou and Neighbors and Shen. And it makes sense with all the trade speculation of Pavel Buchnevich possibly being gone. Sure. He's not a pairing partner with Thomas. Thomas's pairing partner needs to be Jake Neighbors. Jordan Kyrou's success has been this season when he's played with Braden Shen. I just don't understand why we are trying to jam a square peg into a round hole.
Let's ask Joey Vitale about this. We'll find out what his perspective is on the new lines that the Blues are going with tonight against the New Jersey Devils. We'll also get his thoughts on what the future might hold for Pavel Buchnevich here in St. Louis and what he thought about what the Vegas Golden Knights and the Colorado Avalanche did yesterday for the trade deadline. All of that, so much more with one of our favorites, Joey Vitale, next here on 101 ESPN.
Tara Hendrickson here with a Sports Center update driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet and Johnny Londoff Autoplex. The St. Louis Blues will be back in action tonight as they visit the New Jersey Devils. We'll bring in coverage starting at 5 o'clock with Alex Ferrario and Joey Vitale. Then Joey will join Chris Kerber for Puck Drop at 6. And Oscar Sundquist and the St. Louis Blues have agreed to a 2-year contract extension worth $3 million, which carries a $1.5 million AAV. And the Cardinals back in action today for spring training action. The Sports Update is driven by Johnny Londoff. Find your road shop 24/7 at londoff.com, londoffautoPlex.com. Are you kidding me?
Omaha! Two of them? Joey Vitale's on the bus right now, coming back from New Jersey over into the city. So we'll talk to him coming up at the top of the hour. Joey Vitale, one of the best in the business. We'll get his thoughts on the changing of the lines. We'll get his thoughts on Pavel Buchnevic's future. Felt like it would be a little weird for him to talk about that, in front of Pavel Buchnevich. So we'll do that coming up at 12 o'clock.
Just yell on the bus right now. Hey, Booch, you getting traded?
The famous, the Nuggets broadcaster? Hey, is Jamichael playing today? Oh, no, hold on. Jamichael, you in today? No, he says he's out.
Hey, Booch, you playing tonight?
Apparently, Booch got traded.
Deadline reasons. All right. Alex, the big move yesterday that got people talking was Noah Hanifin going from the Calgary Flames to the Vegas Golden Knights. The Vegas Golden Knights just... I love the way they operate, man. I understand that it's a little sketchy because it does include a lot of LTIR moves and them kind of playing this game of, hey, our guy is wink, wink, nod, nod, not healthy yet, but by the time we get to the playoffs, he's going to be ready to go. I understand why that frustrates fans, but purely from a fan perspective, like, if you swapped the Blues and the Vegas Golden Knights, dude, we would think this is so freaking cool. Because every time you get to the deadline, if there's a star that is available, your team is in on them. And it's not just like the Patrick Kanes or the Vladimir Tarasenko's who are at the end of their career. It's guys that contribute towards winning. Like, Ivan Barbashev last year, nobody considered him to be the best player that moved. But he might have been the most important player that moved at the deadline. He contributed towards winning. And that's the kind of move that they make. Hanifin is one of those players. I don't think they're going to re-sign him, but maybe they will. The goal right now is for him to help them win a Stanley Cup in 2024. Alex, they did not have to give up their 2024 first-round pick. Their first-round pick will go in 2025 or 2026, depending on what they decide to do over the next 24 hours or so. Would you have made this move for Hanifin if you were in the Blues shoes?
I would have. I really would have made this move. And look, I know that the Blues probably couldn't have done this because maybe Hanifin dictated where he wanted to go and told Calgary, like, hey, I'd rather go this place. Although I don't think Calgary really cares where Hanifin wanted to go. They were going to get the best offer available to him. And, if the Blues don't have the opportunity to re-sign him, then obviously that causes some hiccups. Here's the thing, though. Like we talk about with the Cardinals and forcing the other side to say no to it, I mean, they traded a prospect, Daniil Miramonov, who has played like 29 games. He was an undrafted defenseman, and he hasn't really produced. That's the equivalent of trading Scott Perunovich. Scott Perunovich was at least drafted in the second round. He's an RFA potentially, and he's played in the NHL. Now, I know he's got injury histories, but this guy's taken the train from the AHL to the NHL a lot. You gave up a first-round draft pick for next year's draft, not even this year's draft, next year's draft, and a conditional third-round pick in this year's draft that becomes a second-round pick if they win a round. Fine. That's a second-round draft pick for a dude who eats 21 minutes a night and plays in the top pair. And you had to get a broker to eat half of the salary, and it costed a fifth-round draft pick. I understand that the Blues have other issues trying to find a way to trade Pavel Buchnevich. Your scoring's bad, and you're tied up with a lot of defensemen. Figure it out. You've got a guy who, in my opinion, fills one massive hole for next season, and it's fixing your top pair defensively. And if you don't believe me, I won't cite his name. It's somebody with The Athletic who likes to do a lot of analytics work. I never agree with them. Don't say his name, T-Bone.
No, he actually was nice to Blues fans today.
Yeah, sure, fine, whatever.
Can I give you what he said?
It's like Lord Voldemort. I can't hear it.
So Dom over at The Athletic put together a piece today on his 16 stats stuff. I did find it really fascinating that he had a nugget in there about how what's his face Avalanche defenseman
McCarr. Kale McCarr has been not as good this year, and then McCarr last night has his first hat trick in the NHL.
He's better than any defenseman that's ever played for the Colorado Avalanche, including 2 Hall of Famers.
I thought that was fascinating. So, Dom wrote earlier today over on The Athletic, quote, Colton Parayko is a decent defenseman in a difficult situation with little support on a bad team. And those are always the trickiest players to analyze. I do agree with him there. When enough fans look at the numbers, though, and tell you this is wrong, this guy is still legit, it should be enough to give you pause and dig a little deeper. I respect that he's willing to do that. Editor's note. I'm still in the process of working out a better quality of teammate and competition adjustment for situations like this, which will hopefully be ready for the playoffs. Early indication, though, suggests that adjustments should make Parayko look a fair bit better. Offensively, I still believe he looks like a drag, but defensively,
there it is.
He's 22nd in competition difficulty and 12th in teammate quality. That's an onerous situation, so the fact that he even carries an average defensive rating is actually really impressive. His defensive burden is considered to be the 5th most difficult in the league. His contract's still a little bit dicey, and acquiring him would be risky given his recent results, but in the right situation, with the right fit, Colton Parayko looks like somebody who could thrive as a number 2 defenseman.
And that number 2 defenseman needs a number 1 defenseman. And I don't know if Hanifin is a number 1 defenseman, but you know what he is? He's a upgrade over Nick Leddy. And that's not shooting down Nick Leddy. I think Nick Leddy would be awesome for this team if you had him on your second pair. But to get this team to the next level, to get them out of this haze of dealing with, well, the team's not good enough. They got to get through some of these bad contracts. Again, I understand you would have had to figure it out with 2 other $6.5 million contracts if you gave Noah Hanifin $6.5, $7.5 million, whatever he gets. But you're fixing your defensive hole for the next 5 seasons, 5+ seasons. This guy's 26 years old, and he's already a number 1 defenseman. That fits into the timeline that Doug Armstrong was talking about. And again, it was a first-round pick in next year's draft. It was a third-round pick that maybe is a second-round pick, a prospect that's not even in Scott Wheeler's top 10 prospect list for the Vegas Golden Knights, and a 5th-round pick to eat salary elsewhere. There's a lot of variables. I get it. But if you're trying to fix certain holes on this team by next season, you just missed out on one who got traded and is probably going to re-sign with Vegas.
So the reason I wouldn't have traded for him is because of what a texter just sent in, and I think it's a fair point from the 314. Guys, they can just sign him in the offseason for nothing. That's where I'm at. I wouldn't have signed him because...
If he gets to free agency?
Totally fair. I wouldn't have given up a first-round pick for a rental given what the situation is that the Blues are in right now. And I'm not sure that Noah Hanifin would have signed here this season, because you're going to trade for him, putting him into a situation where the Blues are competing for very little right now. Like they're probably not making the playoffs. Earlier today, the morning show had Mike Kelly on their show, and he said they've got a 29% chance, according to his model, to get into the postseason. So you're trading for Noah Hanifin, dropping him into a situation that's not ideal, and making him play the string out for a non-contender, and then hoping that he resigns here. That's probably not the best way to say, like, hey, come to St. Louis. It's going to be great, you know? Because you probably don't pick up a whole lot of good vibrations when your team...
You can fix the problem, Noah.
...is not contending for something meaningful. Noah probably looks at it, and he's watching the playoffs, sitting on his couch and saying to himself, hey, man, I want to play for Tampa Bay. I want to play for Florida. I want to go to the Southeast, which has apparently been his preference. Whereas this offseason... maybe you could go to Noah Hanifin and say, hey, we can give you the most money. And that might be more of a reason for him to come here without having firsthand knowledge of what the situation is that he's walking into.
And you know what? That makes sense. And if he wasn't willing to discuss an extension or wanted to come here, all understandable. And in that scenario, I can't peek behind the curtain there. Maybe the conversation's already had. I'm just looking at it on the general scale. And when you have to go through next season again as Blues fans and look at Leddy and Krug and Falk and Parayko in your top 4 and saying, why isn't this team good enough? Well, you've missed 2 opportunities to upgrade that left-handed number 1 defenseman to play with Parayko and Hampus Lindholm with the Boston Bruins. That you just, look, you got outbid. And I understand that.
Yeah.
Noah Hanifin and Jacob Chychrun. Those are the 3 guys that, at least right now, match what they need to play with Colton Parayko. And guess what? If you don't get one of them, you're probably going to have to draft and develop that player. And the only way you're drafting and developing that player is if you draft in the top 5. or top 8 this season.
Thankfully, the Blues might be doing that. He's
Hopefully
Alex
they
Ferrario,
do.
that's Tanner Hendrickson, and I'm Brandon Kiley. Coming up next, 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line for questions and answers here on 101 ESPN. Joey Vitale joining us in about 10 minutes. 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line for questions and answers for you to get involved right now. You can always join us as well in the YouTube chat, youtube.com/101ESPN STL. That is where the graveyard is taking place today. Alex, does the Sonny extension open up the possibility of him being traded for picks, in your opinion?
No, I don't think so.
It's from the 816.
I think the picks you were going to get for him were going to be 5th or later, and with a 2-year contract extension, my guess is it would be a worse pick because somebody's going to take on 2 years of contracts. I don't think you sign somebody to a contract extension pre-trade deadline, a 2-year extension. You do a 2-year extension because you want that player to be around.
Yeah, 100% agree with you, because now it would be difficult to trade him, because if you were to trade Sonny, you eat 50% of his contract because it was a rental and he probably would have cost like $250K against the cap. Now you have to retain salary both for this year and the following years when that happens. You sign him because you want him here for the next 2 years.
If that would have been a 1-year extension, then I would have said, you know what, maybe. It would have been a tinfoil.
314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line from the 314. Is moving Booch off of the first line a potential precaution if he gets traded to have other plans in place? I don't think so. I think this is a reaction to the way that they've been playing.
I think that's a real tinfoil thought with it. I will say, though, I've always thought of Booch and Thomas as the pairing, and now it's very evident that Thomas and Kyrou are the pairing. Shen and Neighbors obviously are the pairing. It's surprising to me that Booch is the one that's moving around. And with, again, tinfoil purely, but with the trade deadline looming, you don't want Booch on a top line. You'd see what the chemistry looks like elsewhere, and then you fill that void if a trade takes place.
Yeah, I think if they were going to do anything that was for the trade deadline, he wouldn't play tonight. And that, like, they would do the classic scratch for trade-related reasons.
I think Army does that.
I know he probably should.
I don't think he's ever done it.
But I don't see this as a precautionary move.
Yeah, I don't either. I think this is a reaction to the performance of that top line. I don't think it's a reaction to
should have been a different reaction.
What type of package do you think it would take for Army to accept a deal from Carolina? Alex, I've been kind of operating under first round plus Martin Necas, excuse me. That's probably the starting point, and then from there you can kind of work your way and see if there's any other stuff that has to be done. But that's, in my opinion, where you kind of get to.
So Rob Rossi, who covers the Pittsburgh Penguins for The Athletic, tweeted yesterday that the price is high on Jake Gensel and teams are balking at it. He said things can change fast, but as right now he's not being moved. And the price, at least we've heard, for Gensel was the equivalent of 2 first-round picks, either a pick and a prospect or 2 prospects. Kyle Dubas wants players over picks, but that's what the price is for Gensel. So go to Booch with Carolina. I think and again, speculation of what Doug Armstrong's putting out there, I think the ask is you send me Martin Necas, you send me your best prospect, which is this Alex Nikishin, and you send me your first-round pick. That's the equivalent of 3 first-round picks. Bless you. 3 first-round picks. That's what I would say the starting point is.
Oh, interesting. I would say it's 2 of those 3 pieces that you just mentioned.
I think if it's 2 of those pieces, Carolina makes the deal right now. I think the price is 3 of those, and that's just the starting point.
I would accept 2.
I wouldn't, because the pick doesn't do you much. I think you need
Martin Necas does, and the pick does. I mean,
I think Martin Necas puts you in the same spot you're in right now. You're getting a player like Buchnevich and trading away Pavel Buchnevich.
Exactly. And he's 25 years old, and I'll have him on an RFA status, which means that I can extend him for cheaper than what Buchnevich is going to be. And by the end of his next contract, he will be at the age that Buch is now, and I don't have to pay Buch's 8-year, $8 million per year deal. So that is why you do it, is to restart the clock.
That's fine, but if I'm trading a guy that's got 2 years of control at that price.
But for you, it's really 1 year of control because this year is a wash.
Understandable.
You just have to.
But, I mean, if that's the going rate, you're going to have to meet. And I think Doug is trying to. You're trying to fill multiple holes by trading Pavel Buchnevich and getting a forward in return to play in your top 6 and filling a void.
But we can't look at it that way. We've got to look at it as.
I think Doug's looking at it that way.
I think Doug's looking at it as I've got an asset. What is the best way to cash in this asset? Because I don't think. Can we start here? Do you guys think that the Blues have any interest in re-signing Buchnevich?
No.
At his price?
Not if he's getting 8.5 by 8.
Not at the
Because I think that's what it's going to be.
Yeah. I think when you look at what Bo Horvath got with the Islanders, which is 8 by 8.5, that's what the price is for Pavel Buchnevich's side. And they don't know that. They might know that, but they haven't talked to it yet.
They haven't talked to him. I'm going to go out on a limb. This is not
You can't
reporting
speak
pure
to his
speculation.
representation either.
I'm
That's
gonna
illegal.
guess there's probably been a backroom conversation where it's like, hey, what do you think the price is here? And let's be honest, we all know what the price is because we can do the comparisons. The Blues certainly know what the price is going to be based on the comparisons. So I don't think the Blues are doing that. So Doug's looking at this and he's saying, all right, what's the best way to cash this in? Is it right now or is it to wait? Hold this asset into the offseason and then see which teams may emerge in June that did not exist today. Because there will be cap space that is available elsewhere that is not there today, and there will be players that are potentially available that are not available today. I think Martin Necas, one of the reasons why I have honed in on Carolina so much is because he is one of the players that I would be targeting if I am in Doug Armstrong's shoes. He's young. He's got upside still. He has been a successful NHL player, and he's an RFA after the season, which means that he is potentially available for Carolina. And from Carolina's perspective, to your point, Alex, they would view it as we are replacing Necas with Pavel Buchnevich for the next 2 seasons at essentially the same cap hit. Mm-hmm. So we are upgrading by getting Buchnevich, which fits into their timeline. For the Blues, they're restarting the clock and getting an asset that they really like and acquiring a first-round pick in return for that asset.
Yeah, I just view this.
That's why I view him as the guy.
I view it in that scenario. If that's the package they're offering me, if I'm Doug, I'll say I'll wait and see because guess what? A team's going to get bounced in the first round of the playoffs, and they're going to get desperate, much like the L.A. Kings did last year, and they're going to pay a hefty price for 1 year of Pavel Buchnevich where they have a year to try and re-sign him. I'll wait and see if a team gets more desperate at the draft, which is a crapshoot, by the way.
Yep. Last year we saw that, and teams did not get desperate at the draft. There was almost no movement in the first round.
I don't think there was a trade in the first round.
No, there wasn't.
Yeah, we were there. I remember.
Yeah, it
And
was
that
very
was
boring.
for picks.
It was
Like,
very
that's
boring.
not even for players where
Yeah.
the caps, like, it was picks for picks that didn't even
But
get
2 years prior to that, I mean, Ottawa got very desperate to go get Alex DeBrincat and move up in that situation. Like, it always comes down to teams that had high expectations. I mean, you don't know. Carolina might be scoffing at it right now, and then they get bounced in the first round of the playoffs and say, screw it, we got to pay it. We need this guy, and we're not going to be able to get Necas.
The thing is, I think it's more likely they go the opposite direction. If it goes poorly for Carolina, I think they might fire Rod Brindamore and start anew.
Great.
You know, and that's where things get dicey.
Let's get Rod.
What happens with Toronto? Well, they may get antsy this offseason and say we're gonna start over, we're gonna do something different, right? Or they may blow it up and not bring in a bunch of high-priced guys. They might say we need to do this differently, so that becomes a situation where Buch is no longer of interest to a team like Toronto. Maybe Kyrie's not of interest to a team like Toronto. And now you have eliminated 2 of the teams that right now might be interested in Buch that this offseason will not be interested in him. So it goes both ways. You might get teams that are more interested. You might have a lot of teams that are interested now that say, you know what, in the offseason, I don't have it. Vegas might be one of those teams. In the offseason, I'm not sure that they'll show the same interest in a Pavel Buchnevich.
If I'm Army, man, I'm going to operate like Kyle Dubas is right now. I want more prospects rather than picks. I don't want your first-round pick. I want your best prospect.
All right, let's get to a couple of things real quick before we get to Joey Vitale on the other side. One, John Denton tweeted this out a little bit ago. Ollie Marmol says this morning, Lars Nootbaar is being withheld as a precautionary measure. He has rib soreness. He jammed his elbow into his ribs while he's trying to make a twisting catch and falling versus the Astros. He has been unavailable for each of the last 4 games, including today. Scale of 1 to 10, level of concern.
4.
Yeah, 3. I'm not too concerned.
But who the
about
hell's
that.
letting these guys make twisting saves in the outfield?
My concern is not that he's hurt right now. My concern is that it always seems to be something. And the fact
especially
that
with
he is
him.
hurt is the opposite of what you wanted to see in spring training from Lars Nootbaar. I just wanted a healthy spring. Just can this guy
Right
play?
now, we're 0 for 3.
Yeah. Can this guy play 140 games? That's all you want to see this year. Because I believe in the talent. When he is on the field, it's the opposite of the Tyler O'Neill thing, where even when he's been on the field in recent seasons, he hasn't been good for most of them, other than one. Lars has been good when he's been on the field. He just can't stay healthy, man. So I wanted to see him stay healthy. This sucks. The other thing, Alex, you brought this to my attention a little bit ago. The Asian Breeze is a Japanese baseball team, and it sounds like Trevor Bauer is going to be, I don't believe signing with them. He will be, according to their press release, participating in a game for the Breeze against the Dodgers on March 10th. Coming up later this week, I guess. So this will essentially serve as a showcase game for Trevor Bauer, who will be taking on the LA Dodgers. The Dodgers are going to be playing against them in preparation for, I believe, their opening season. When is it that they're playing over there? Is it like a spring training game?
No, they are playing regular season baseball against the Padres 2 weeks from yesterday.
Cool. Yeah. So there you go. The Asian Breeze will have Trevor Bauer participating in a game against the Dodgers. So there's your Trevor Bauer update for today. Coming up next, Joey Vitale, Blues analyst for 101 ESPN. Alongside Alex Ferrario and Tanner Hendrickson, I'm Brandon Kiley. It's BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN, and we're always happy to be joined by our friend, the great Blues analyst for 101 ESPN and Bally Sports Midwest, Joey Vitale. Before we get to him here in just a moment, I do have to make sure that we tell you, coming up in about 10 minutes or so, we're going to play a game of Can You Beat the Blues? Today you're going up against Colton Parayko. We'll have 3 different contestants, and we will take numbers 55, 72, and 85 on the text line. 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line. If you are texter number 55, 72, or 89, you will be going up against Colton Parayko today in Can You Beat the Blues? Just text in, I can beat the Blues. All right, let's go out to the 101 ESPN hotline right now to be joined by our friend Joey Vitale. It's certainly been a busy time in the NHL over the last 24 hours or so. Joe, how you doing today, my man?
Joey! How's New Jersey?
Hey, what's going on, fellas? Yeah, sorry for the little bit delay that we were in Jersey. The team's staying in Jersey, so there's like a day room situation. So a lot of moving parts, as you mentioned. A long, great week, but a bit of a crazy week. So I appreciate your patience. I'm doing well today.
Don't sweat it, Joe. We have been late to you once or twice. So
we haven't. One person's
you're more
late.
than okay. Joe, what do you make of some of the movement that we have seen in the NHL? Any of these trades that have surprised you yet?
You know, I think everyone that's happened, I think a lot of people saw coming. You know, the Hanifin one, the Tarasenko one. You knew movement was going to hum. You knew teams like Vegas with the Hanifin they were going to be aggressive. I think the biggest surprise for me, honestly, has been the Casey Middlestat. You know what Buffalo's been doing. I think that's been a bit of a shock to me because I think with Casey Middlestat being at the age he was, a great centerman. But I think that, you look at Colorado and to me, they're bulking up as you expected. I just didn't expect to see the Casey Middlestat one there. And, and then to get the return that Buffalo's gotten with Bo Byram, now they have 4 left shot defensemen. 4 of their top 6 defensemen are all left-handed shooting defensemen, which is, to me a bit of an issue because most defensemen do not want to switch sides. So I would say Buffalo's been the biggest surprise up to this point, but across the board, I think BK has been pretty natural to see some of the other ones that have been moved to be where they are right now. And, of course, now everyone kind of sits and waits for a few other big names. Jacob Markstrom, is Calgary going to make a move there? Everyone's fully anticipating the Jake Gensel one as well. So a couple big names certainly still floating around, and we'll have to kind of hang tight until the future kind of unfolds the way it's supposed to be.
Joe, on the blue side, we saw today the line rushes that Drew Bannister was deploying, and listened a little to Curves' interview with Drew Bannister, which we'll hear tonight on our pregame show. But he's switching up that top 6, and he's moving Buchnevich down. He's moving Saad up to try and generate more 5-on-5 offense. I'm a little surprised, Joe, that we haven't seen the Blues go back to Jake Neighbors on that top line, whether it's with Thomas and Kyrou or Thomas and Buchnevich. Why do you think that is?
I think that, Drew Bannister really likes Neighbors with Shen, and this goes back to the Berube days. But, you obviously you see that offensive lines are a three pair, right? I mean, they're a trio. So, but I think coaches like the pairs within those trios. I think Thomas and Kyrou, for example, that's a pair. I mean, the O'Reilly and the Perron one was a huge pair for a long time. And I think that he feels good about, Jake Neighbors' kind of feistiness, his heaviness. He likes the directness of the captain, so he wants to try to keep those two together. I think when you're looking to make adjustments on lines too, Alex, I think it's a lot to put 2 new players with another player. I think that, to kind of temper that adjustment, to make it a little bit easier of a transition, you try to keep at least 2 guys together and then flip one. And I think that's what he did. You keep Thomas and Kyrou together, so there's at least a familiarity there. And then the same thing with Shen and Neighbors, and you just kind of flip-flop the wingers and Saad and Buchnevich. I like the decision personally because, when you have that much scoring on the top line, your top line better be doggone good. And the top 3-point guys for the St. Louis Blues were all on that top line with Buchnevich, Kyrou, and Thomas clearly. And I think that with everything going on this week, especially for number 89, Pavel Buchnevich, I think that, his game's kind of it's been pretty vanilla lately. I think, no one can ever anticipate or expect to know what's going on in Buchnevich's head, but his game, hasn't been there the last few games. And I think it's rightfully so, given everything kind of going on in his own personal world with the trade rumors and the buzz kind of surrounding him. So I think that, Drew Bannister wants to kind of bring him down, put him with a Shen and Neighbors to kind of take a little bit of pressure off him. And not to mention, hopefully, the Saad can give you a spark with some of your top-line guys as well. But if anything, it's going to balance the scoring out amongst the top six versus just having everyone on that top line. And because if that top line gets shut down, it makes it very hard for the Blues to generate any offense.
Joe, there is a lot of speculation, as you mentioned, about what the future is going to hold for Pavel Buchnevich with the St. Louis Blues. I'm just curious, if I put you in Doug Armstrong's shoes, right, it's a difficult job, and this is a really good player. He's one of my favorite players to watch on the team. What kind of value would you have to get back in order to trade a piece like that?
You know, for a player like Buchnevich, you know, you're talking about a first round, clearly. You're talking about a prospect potentially, but the biggest thing I think is probably the hang-up is that I think Doug Armstrong wants a around 25-year-old NHL-ready player. And that's a big ask, especially when you're looking at a Buchnevich going to a team. Let's just take, for example, the Edmonton Oilers. You know, to me, they were a big suitor before the Carrick and the Henrique trade yesterday. You know, if you look at Edmonton's lineup, how many 25-ish-year-old NHL-ready players do they have? And if they even have them, are they willing to give up? So that, to me, is what makes the asking price so high. I think teams can do the first-rounder. Teams can do prospects. But I think, Doug, if you're going to be giving up a 30-year-old-ish player in Buchnevich and you want a NHL-ready younger player in return, there's just not many players like that kind of fit that category. So I think it's kind of a three-headed monster that the Blues are looking at for Buchnevich, BK. And, you know, to me, that's what makes the asking price so high. It's not the first rounder, it's not the prospect, it's that NHL-ready guy in return. And I think that's what Doug Armstrong wants. Now, with all that being said, you know, is Doug Armstrong going to be wishy-washy, or is he going to kind of flip-flop, or is he going to, you know, kind of ease off the gas a little bit with that asking price? I personally don't think so. I don't think he needs to. And that's where, when you look at Buchnevich's contract, we still have him for one more year. He's a player you can still deal in the summer around the draft, which, you know, the value in the draft is still going to be very high. Maybe not quite as high as it is now, but you never know what the market may hold back then too. So one thing about Doug, I will say, I think in a really good way, I think he can be stubborn that what he wants is what he wants. And I think that it's important for the team to have a general manager like that. And what I mean by that in a good way is this. If you're a general manager that has an asking price, or you have a number for a player for a contract, and if as time goes by, if you end up taking that back a little bit, or you pump the brakes a little bit, and then you give up what you need to give up, you know, yeah, you may win-ish that deal there, but what you're losing is maybe potentially setting up a trade or a player signing down the road. What I think Doug has done a very good job of is helping people understand, at least people understand Doug as a GM that doesn't waver. You know, this is what it is. You know, he stands for it. Buchnevich is a valuable player. To me, I think he is the most valuable player in the winger pool right now, and I'm going to include Jake Gensel on that. I think no one plays a 200-foot game like him, and I think that Doug Armstrong knows that. So he's going to say, no, this is what I want, and he is a general manager that sticks by what he wants. And I think that when you have that reputation, other GMs are going to look at him by say, hey, this is what Doug's asking, and I'm telling you right now, based off his history, he's not going to waver from that. So either we go in with this or we don't. So I think that that's really important too, and I think it's become just a little bit of a waiting game now.
One of the players that we've talked about that fits into that criteria, and we're talking to Joey Vitale, Blues analyst for both 101 ESPN and Bally Sports Midwest. He'll be on the call tonight. Blues versus Devils, pregame with Alex starting at 5. Puck drop with Joe and Curbs at 6 o'clock right here on your home of the Blues, 101 ESPN. Joe, one of the players that we've been talking about in that regard is Martin Necas, center/winger for the Carolina Hurricanes. He's 25 years old. He's a pending RFA this upcoming offseason, and they're a team that's at least been rumored to potentially be interested in Pavel Buchnevich. If that was one of the players that was coming in return, do you think he makes sense for what the Blues are trying to build?
Yeah, I do. I mean, I think Necas is a great player. I think, you know, when the Blues play him, he's certainly one of those players that always jumps out of the page at you. He's got a great little motor about him. I love the intensity he plays with. And I think right now, you know, BK, this is a team that is always going to be a team that is going to continue to build around the middle. I mean, you want to build around the middle. I think defensively, obviously, they're pretty set there. Goaltending, they're exceptional, right? I mean, they're A+ in goaltending. I think defense, it is what it is, but there's really not much you can do at this point. And I think that from an offensive standpoint, I think you build through the middle. And, you build through the middle because a player like Nate just could fit into the caliber and the quality of your team, because you can always bump other guys out. It's much easier for centermen to move out to wing than wingers to move to center. So if you're talking about a Buchnevich to a Carolina, a Nate just to me is someone that is very, very attractive because of the center position. A centerman, as we all know, they play a 200-foot game more frequently than a winger. They're really good about being down low. Clearly, he's a good face-off guy to be in the middle there as well. So you have a lot more flexibility when you do get a player like that. But that is something that is certainly swirling around. I think there's a lot of legs to it because, of course, you'd be losing Buchnevich to the Eastern Conference, which is always a little bit better. I mean, I know that there was rumors and murmurs about certain players going to Colorado, and I can't. You don't see it very often in the league, and I can't imagine Doug Armstrong wanting to play Pavel Buchnevich for at least another year and potentially more if he signs an extension, which is of course what he has the right to do as well too. So I think that is certainly one of those situations that is moving around that has a few legs to it.
That's the thing that's tough. It's one thing to move a player that's on an expiring deal to a place like Colorado when you're not necessarily contending at the same level. It's another thing entirely when you've got another year on that deal and you got to see them in that uniform again in 2025. Hey, Joe, appreciate the time as always, man. Enjoy yourself out there in New York. It's pretty cool you guys get to be able to do that trip where it's a bunch of different teams in the same general area. We'll talk with you again next week after all the dust is settled and find out exactly what took place for the Blues at this year's deadline.
Good day.
See you, Joe.
Joey Vitale. Appreciate his time, as always, here on 101 ESPN. Alex, I'm all in on Martin Necas. I'm all in. I think that's the guy.
I love the idea of it, and I think Joe said it best. Like, you got three pieces you're asking for. You're asking for that player, that prospect, and the first-round pick. And, again, if you're a Blues fan right now and you want a deal to happen with Pavel Buchnevich, Carolina is the team that I would target, and you have to fingers, toes, crossed, pray to whoever you want to pray that Gensel goes elsewhere. Because if Gensel goes to Carolina, then that trade is dead.
That's where you get to have the conversation.
And the Gensel thing happens because they don't have to trade Martin Necas.
Right.
Pittsburgh doesn't want Necas. They want picks and prospects.
Yep.
The Blues want Necas and the prospect and the pick.
That's the difference between a retool versus a rebuild, by the way. Pittsburgh's entering a rebuild.
Absolutely.
They want stuff that is for like 5 years down the road. Like, they're looking beyond Crosby's time. Crosby has to know right now, hey, I'm not winning anymore. My time to win in Pittsburgh is over. I've just got to be okay with what this is going to be. And it sounds like he is, so more power to him. But the Blues are entering a situation where we don't want stuff for 5 years from now.
It needs to be
stuff for like 2 years from now.
Needs to be impacting our team at least partially next year. And the year after, they need to be ready to go.
We want a guy that's going to be good in 2025.
Yeah.
That's what we want a player that is going to be good by the 25-26 season. And that means players that are recently selected. That means players that are going to be highly selected in the upcoming draft, or players that are already in the NHL.
And look around the trade deadline already. Like, none of those players have been moved. Like, we targeted Dylan Holloway with the Edmonton Oilers and Philip Broberg. Well, neither of those guys were moved in the deal.
Moved one.
But they got a guy in return. Like, that was the hockey trade.
Yep.
And so you're talking hockey trade right now. And guess what? Colorado's not desperate, but Colorado basically said, we need to get better because we have a chance to win.
Long last, the first inning for the Cardinals has come to an end. Kyle Gibson surrendered 4 earned runs on 5 hits to the Astros. 3 of the balls were hit exceptionally hard.
Did you guys hear John Mozeliak say earlier today that they were aggressive this offseason?
Yep, 98-mile-per-hour single, 103-mile-per-hour single, 102-mile-per-hour single. Those were by Yordan Alvarez, Kyle Tucker, and Chas McCormick. He also had a double that was hit off of him at 81 miles per hour by Jose Abreu.
You know what Kyle Gibson
did get a strikeout in the inning as well. Bregman could not find a way to...
You know what Kyle Gibson's going to offer this team this season that we're not talking enough about?
Lots of innings. When he goes, 26 pitches in the first inning against the Astros.
He is going to run up that StatCast meter of the hardest hit balls in Major League Baseball. His face is going to be on every column.
This is what
Lance Lynn
remember last year, 2 years ago maybe it was, where Steven Matz had that really bad spring outing where it was like, oh my God, just single.
BK's going to try and rub this one down for you.
No, that's what this is. Like, this is who Kyle Gibson is. None of this is surprising. He gives up a lot of hits.
I know. It's why it's frustrating.
Literally nobody in Major League Baseball gave up more hits last year than Kyle Gibson.
And is that worth $11 million to you?
Sure, if it comes with, like, if he has the exact same season this year that he had last year, he's worth $11 million. The problem is, he's your number 3 starter.
He might be arguing he's number 2.
That's the problem. All right. Coming up in 15 minutes, Lars Nootbaar is hurt again, but he might be willing to make, or he might be worth a contract extension in spring training.
Did you just put those 2 sentences together?
What?
He's hurt again, but he might be worth a contract extension.
Yeah, The Athletic put together a list of a bunch of young players that would be extension eligible this spring. What would it take to re-sign Lars Nootbaar? We'll tell you what the price was in their article coming up in 15 minutes. But next, we do have 3 contestants on the line. Colton Parayko is our contestant that you're going up against today. Can you beat the Blues? Next here on 101 ESPN. All right, it's time for a game of Can You Beat the Blues? Today, the contestant you're going up against is Colton Parayko. We have Ed, Austin, and Brett. They all believe that they can beat the Blues. Today's winner will get a signed puck by Colton Parayko and tickets to see the Blues versus the Flames on March 28th. Nobody knows who's going to be on the ice when that game is played, but we know that it's going to be the Flames.
I know Parayko will be.
Against the St. Louis Blues. For Alex and T-Bone, I'm BK. This game is very simple, Alex. If I asked you the question of can you name as many colors as you can in 15 seconds on your mark, get set, go.
Red, blue, yellow, green, magenta.
He got 4. I like the magenta pull in there.
Plus
Colton
2.
Parayko got 5. He'd be a -1. He'd be a leader in the clubhouse, and we figure out
Give
where
him
to
more
go
time.
from there. Very simple game. Ed, Austin, and Brett, again, are our contestants. Whoever has the best margin at the end of this game will be going home with the winner. We'll start out with Ed. Ed, it's good to talk with you, my friend. How you doing today?
I'm doing great. How
There
about
we go,
you?
Ed.
Ed, do you think the Blues should trade Colton Parayko?
Don't you do it, Ed.
No,
There
no
we
way.
go.
There you go.
Ed, plus 1 point already.
Hey,
Ed, you're going up against Colton Parayko today. Do you understand the rules?
yes, I do.
All right, Ed, your category today is going to be race car drivers. Name as many race car drivers as you can in 15 seconds. On your mark, get set, go.
Kyle Larson, Kyle Busch, Austin Dillon,
He's my favorite.
Ron Blank, Jimmy Johnson, Michael Andretti, Marco Andretti.
All right. Do
Yeah,
we give
that's
him
6.
No Dale Earnhardt, huh?
or Junior?
No Dale?
Jeff, did he say Jeff Gordon?
Hey, no. It's just a little tough when you're on there
No Kenny
bearing
Wallace?
down on you.
Yeah, can we get a
Rusty
Kenny
Wilson?
Wallace?
No, I know.
Do we give him a point for?
Hey,
Do we give him the
I
point for?
should have. This should have been right up my alley, but no, I just froze.
Do we give him a point for the famous NASCAR driver? He is my favorite. So I got 6 for
All right,
Ed.
Ed, we got you with 6. We'll put you on hold. Stay there. We'll
don't
see
like
if
your odds, Ed.
Colton Parayko knows his race car drivers. I think he's actually a racing fan, so we'll
Huge
see how he
racing
does
fan.
here.
Blaney, Logano, Cindric, Keselowski, Truex Jr., who's the Hendricks cars? Larson. You got, who's that? Bowman, and
Oh, he almost said my favorite driver.
He got close. All right, that's a -1 for Ed. I got 7
Yeah,
for
I got
Parayko.
7.
You guys get the same?
Yep.
All right, Ed, stay on the line. You're the leader in the clubhouse right now with a -1.
Way to go, Ed.
Austin is our next contestant. Austin, you're going up against Colton Parayko as well. Do you understand the rules, my man?
Oh yeah.
Austin,
Oh,
do you think
yeah.
that the Blues should trade Colton Parayko?
Austin.
Absolutely not.
There we go, Austin. Plus 2 points for you.
Austin, do you think the Blues should trade Pavel Buchnevich? And if so, what's your preferred destination?
I do think they should, and I think I'm with you guys on the Carolina. Definitely top prospect, first-round pick, and, well, his name is
Martin,
escaping
you're
me
good.
right
Just
now.
call him
Just
Martin.
call him
I
Marty.
call him 4
Yeah.
different last names every time we discuss him,
There
so
it
we'll
is.
figure that
There it
out as
is,
we get here.
Austin, you're like 5 points up right now before you start, man. Congratulations.
All right, Austin is
trying,
doing well
I'm trying.
winning over Alex's heart.
Way to
We'll
go,
see
Austin.
if he can do well competing against Colton Parayko. Austin, your category today is things that you would eat for breakfast. Name as many different things as you can that you would eat for breakfast in 15 seconds. On your mark, get set, go.
Bacon, turkey sausage, regular sausage, toast, eggs, butter, poached eggs, cereal, Reese's Puffs, almonds, Joy.
All right, time
Okay,
out.
I'm going to give him 11.
No, you're not. You're going to
He
give
said-
him 10 because he said butter.
Oh,
You put
don't
butter
eat
on your
butter?
toast?
Are you
That's
kidding
eating
me?
butter.
You put butter on everything.
He said
Pancakes.
toast and then said butter.
You put butter on
counts.
toast, and you put it on waffles.
Austin, hold on. Austin,
Yeah.
level with me here. You don't think I should give you 11, right?
Man, I mean, it's hard to say don't give me 11.
Yeah, I like it.
But you know it's the right thing to do.
Austin, bleep this guy. If you've never just taken a bite out of a bar of butter,
Yeah, you've never just taken a bite out
Yeah.
of butter, just, you know.
bleep this
All
guy.
you do
Hey, Austin,
is
it's just
get
you and
some
me here.
cinnamon and sugar.
There you
And then you
go.
just stick a butter in it, and there you go.
You know what
Austin,
you
it's
can't
just the
make?
two of us talking right now. Nobody else is here. There aren't thousands of people in St. Louis listening.
Millions.
Are you telling me you went into your refrigerator pulled out a stick of butter, peeled back that aluminum foil, and said to yourself,
Put aluminum foil on your butter?
well, whatever the packaging is, I think it's aluminum, and said to yourself, you know what I want for breakfast today is a good bite out of this butter. If you have honestly done that, I will give you 11. If you haven't, I'm giving you 10.
Austin, do it right now.
I can't say that I've done it.
Wait, so can we give him points for almond and joy? Because he said almond, joy. I do take a bite out of joy every morning I wake up, Austin, because I know I got to work with this schlub over here.
Fair.
All right, so we got 10.
I got nervous. I was fine through the whole thing until the very end, and I started running out of things. I started getting nervous.
Well, yeah, because this guy, he's going to take points away from you when you said butter. This guy over here is like, butter doesn't count. The hell out of here.
I don't regret that. All right, Austin, we're giving you 10. Austin, we'll see what Colton Parayko does. We'll see if he knows his breakfast.
Say butter, Colton.
How many things can you name that you would eat for breakfast? If he says butter, I'm going to lose it.
cereal, cinnamon bun, eggs, toast, bacon, ham, omelet. What about a butter? Eggs Benedict.
Butter.
And what about
butter?
That's my time.
What about
Colton Parayko is the nicest human being I think I've
my
ever
time.
I had him at
guy.
8.
I had him at 8.
Okay, so +2 then for Austin.
Someone said if you've never taken a bite out of butter, you're not a real man. Of course, PK's never done it.
Yes,
That's
kale
what the
for
text said.
breakfast.
I didn't say that. Yeah, you do eat lettuce for breakfast. Like, come on, you're a vegetarian now.
I eat overnight oats, which is the least surprising thing for anybody in our audience right now.
You really are a horse, aren't you?
That tickled T-Bone. All right.
Yeah, it did.
Let's get to Brett. Brett is our third contestant
Austin,
today. He is also going up against Colton Parayko.
Austin, if you lose
is now
by 1, I'm going to be so upset.
leader in the clubhouse at a +2. Ed, I apologize. You were not able to beat the Blues. Brett, do you understand the rules of the game today, my friend? And do you eat butter for breakfast?
I do understand the rules and no to the butter.
Come on, Brett. What are you doing?
Do you eat overnight oats for breakfast?
I have.
Brett's a +10.
Brett, -3 points already. Like, what are you doing, man?
All right, Brett, you're going up against Colton Parayko, and your category today is things that you would find in the kitchen. Name as many different things as you can that you would find in the kitchen. On your mark, get set, go.
Coffee machine, juicer, toaster, different, I guess, kitchen utensils. Knife set. Let's see. Espresso machine.
Brett,
I got him at 5. Brett, you said kitchen utensils. That's 3 right in front of you.
You could have gone like forks, spoons, knives.
You know what it is? It's because you gave him 10 points before he started. He got too confident.
I do love that he didn't say butter. It was just too easy. It was right there for him.
T-Bone, you heard butter before you started, right? I heard it.
Don't throw me in your games.
All right, so we got 5 for Brett.
You got 5 of them. Let's see if Colton Parayko knows his way around the kitchen.
Dishwashers, trash can. You got the freezer, fridge. You got the utensils. You got plates, bowls, Tupperware, probably. Maybe a wooden spoon. Spatula. You got pots and pans.
All right, you got 10.
Colton Parayko is a regular old chef over there. He's Chef Boyardee.
How did he get to wooden spoon? Hey, probably got a wooden
Apparently
spoon.
he's baking,
I guess. Probably got a wooden spoon laying around there somewhere. So we got 10. So, Austin, you're the winner!
Butter eating boy.
Butter, Austin. You go home and you take a celebratory bite out of that foil butter.
I am definitely, that's the first thing I'm doing when I walk in my house.
Oh, yeah.
I think next year for our football pick'em, and I'm going to regret saying this when I lose 6 straight months, one of our punishments should be eating a stick of butter.
You have to finish the stick before the end of the show.
I'm going to throw up before we even get there.
Austin, go home and film that bite out of the butter and send it to us because I got to see this.
Absolutely.
Way to go, man.
Austin, congratulations. You're getting a signed puck by Colton Parayko and tickets to see the Blues versus the Flames. That game coming up on March 28th, 3 weeks from today. Congratulations to Austin. Your next chance to win a pair of tickets to see the Blues and a signed Blues hockey puck is next week.
Yep.
Right here on BK and Ferrario.
It's tickets to the Blackhawks game. And it's a Jake Neighbors signed puck.
Nice.
And
So-
appreciate Comfort Experts for being a part of this with us.
Jake Neighbors signed puck. You'll get to see in person Connor Bedard.
That's right.
Should
Maybe
be
if
a
he's
fun
not
one.
hurt.
We'll see. Has he lived up to expectations this year?
it's weird because he was hurt for that stretch. I mean, he's been a point-per-game player, so I think he's lived up to those expectations, but he hasn't been a 100-point player. And maybe he would have been if he was healthy. I mean, he missed like 4 or 5 weeks.
Minus 36, which seems not great.
Well, to be fair, that team sucks.
Yeah, I was going to say, to be fair, he's got no help on that team. I mean, he's playing with Nick freaking Foligno in his top line. So
he's the second worst plus-minus on the team.
Yeah, I'd say he's been up.
Who's worse?
Philip Kurashev.
Hey, he's a good player. I mean, obviously not plus-minus wise, but... Yeah, I think he's lived up to expectations. I don't think he's that, like, Connor McDavid we thought he was going to be. But, I mean, Connor McDavid came to a team that had Taylor Hall and Ryan Nugent-Hopkins and Jordan Eberle on it. And Connor Bedard started with Nick Foligno and Corey Perry. And then we all know what happened with Corey Perry.
I feel like it's been a little underwhelming relative to my own personal expectations, given all of the hype that we heard. I think he's been really good. I mean, some of the highlights that you've seen from him this year have been exceptional. But
he pulled off the Michigan on the Blues.
Yeah, I was maybe expecting a little bit more, and I think that was probably unfair to him, honestly. Given the situation that he's been in, he's 18 years old. Like, it was always going to be a tall task to live up to the expectations that were placed upon him. But I would say it's been slightly underwhelming, but not a failure by any stretch of the imagination.
Got a trade update in the Central Division, not the Blues, but Brandon Duhaime from the Minnesota Wild was just traded to the Colorado Avalanche. Damn. That's a really good move. But Colorado should be everybody's favorite right now in the Western Conference, and I say that above the Vegas Golden Knights. The difference is you got a terrible goaltender, but if you keep the puck, it doesn't matter how bad your goalie is.
I will say it again. I love the way that the Colorado Avalanche and the Vegas Golden Knights operate at this time of the year.
I mean,
they know that they're in their winning window. They have superstar caliber players, and they are doing everything they can to show their fans, we want to win as much as you want to win. And sometimes, man, that's all Cardinals fans are asking for. Like, to relate it back to a team here in St. Louis, Cardinals fans don't need them to spend $275 million. Can you just show me that you want to win as badly as I want to see you win? And it feels like they don't for fans. The Avs and the Vegas Golden Knights, dude, those teams have shown their fan bases at every step. We want this for you as badly as you want it for you. And that matters.
If you're them, like, I get it. Mikko Rantanen is going to be due a raise after next season, and he's going to be talking probably similar numbers to Nathan McKinnon, and that's a lot of money for a team to spend. So win the cup as much as you can right now and then figure out the salary cap as you need to down the road.
Last thing here before we get to the contract extension that the Athletic proposed for Lars Nootbaar. A little bit of news in the NFL. The Dolphins and Jonnu Smith, the former Atlanta Falcons tight end, have agreed to a contract worth up to $10 million. It is a 2-year deal between Jonnu Smith and the Dolphins. I like that a lot. That's a really good landing spot for Jonnu Smith.
They really needed a tight end option this season because it's like they had no checkdowns after their 2 best receivers were gone, and Tua got panic.
Yeah, he's not a great player, but he's a good one. Mm-hmm. And you need 3rd, 4th, 5th options in an offense. He's pretty athletic. I like that move. I like that move for the Dolphins quite a bit. All right, coming up in the 1 o'clock hour, we'll get to our 20 most important Cardinals list with Ivan Herrera.
Well, there's a spoiler for you. Way to go, man.
That was a pretty good tease right there.
Jesus, I can't wait to tune in at 1 o'clock.
Hey, Lars Nootbaar, would you do this deal, friend? We'll talk about it next year on 101 ESPN.
Tara Hendricks here with a Sports Center update driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet and Johnny Londoff Autoplex. Earlier today, the St. Louis Blues signed Oscar Sundqvist to a 2-year contract extension worth $3 million that carries a $1.5 million AAV. And the Blues will be back in action tonight as they visit the New Jersey Devils. We'll bring coverage starting at 5 o'clock with Alex Ferrario and Joey Vitale. Then Joey will join Chris Kerber for Puck Drop at 6. And the Cardinals currently in spring training action as they are taking on the Houston Astros. They trail 4-1 in the bottom of the second as Jordan Walker hit a solo home run. Kyle Gibson on the mound gave up 4 earned runs in the first inning. This Sports Update was driven by Johnny Londoff. Find your road shop 24/7 at londoff.com, londoffautoplex.com. Are you kidding me?
It's extension week over on The Athletic, and that means they're going through a bunch of different players across Major League Baseball and talking about what they could earn if they were offered an extension. Alongside Alex and T-Bone, I'm BK. One of the players that they profiled today was Lars Nootbaar, and they said if he were to be offered an extension, it would be worth something around 7 years and $68 million. Alex, Lars Nootbaar has 4 years remaining on his current contract. One pre-arb year, which is this year, would be worth probably around $1 million. And then 3 years in arbitration still for the Cardinals. If he is able to reach his ceiling, the peak Lars conversation that we've had in the past, you're talking about a pretty penny that you're probably going to have to pay Lars Nootbaar via arbitration. But we don't know if he's going to be able to stay healthy. He's missed each of the last 4 games with some kind of a rib issue that he had while falling on his elbow in left field. When he's been healthy, he's been quite productive for the Cardinals in recent seasons. He's a very important Cardinal for them heading into this year. If you guys were in John Mozeliak's shoes, and I'm curious for our listeners as well, at 314-399-9646, that is the Air Comfort Service text line, would you offer Lars Nootbaar a 7-year, $67 million contract extension this year in spring training?
So average out to be about $9 million, almost $10 million. I would do that. And I was just looking at it because, like, this past year and the year prior is eerily similar to the age 22 and 23 years old of Dylan Carlson. Now, I think Nootbaar's defense is better than Dylan Carlson. I think he's a better hitter than Dylan Carlson. But worst case scenario, you're paying $10 million for a Dylan Carlson. I think there's a better ceiling for Lars Nootbaar. We just talked about the peak Lars there. So if I'm paying $10 million for a guy that I can rely upon to give me really good defense in left field or right field, and I can rely on that bat when healthy to be in the top of my order, I think that's worth $10 million because, frankly, you're probably paying more than $10 million if you go to somebody on the free agent market.
Yeah, I would just play out the system with Lars Nootbaar. I would not give him this contract extension that The Athletic projects because, my opinion, I don't know if he ever outprices himself from you in the arbitration system. I mean, in that piece, Tim Britton said maybe $20 million over the 3 years of ARB. And I think two things for me with Lars.
Right. I think he'll get more than that, but somewhere around that.
But if it is that, there's no need for me to end up doing a contract extension. I would just play out the process for him.
I think that's a little short-sighted, though, because if you wanted to continue to have him on your roster beyond that, that's where it gets expensive.
But I don't know if I will. That's what I would argue because they've got some outfielders in the system now. Baez is not probably going to end up one of them, but they just had their first-round pick. Why am I drawing a blank on his name? Chase Pinder? Davis, thank you. Chase Pinder. I don't know what I was thinking.
I'll find out who Pinder is, though, for you.
Chase Davis is someone that they're very high on. They used a first-round pick on him. I would just play out the system with Lars. I think you may have some outfielders in the system that maybe 3 years from now you can have in your system. I think that Will-Bin Choi is a outfielder as well. I think that when you look at Lars, I just don't know what his ceiling is. And when I say that, I don't know if he's ever going to be a great player. I think he's always going to be viewed as a good player, and the injury risk with him right now, though there's not been anything that's been a serious injury for him, he is constantly getting hurt. And it is just, I know they are like freak injuries, like falling on your elbow and hurting your rib. That's an odd injury, and it's just a freak accident.
Sounds like Tyler O'Neill.
But at some point, I have to say, hey, this guy continues to get injured. And do I want to lock him into a contract extension? No, I don't think he would be a priority for me in terms of contract extensions. I wouldn't do it. I'd play out the system with him.
Chase Pinder, 2023 Memphis Redbirds for the Cardinals. Way to go, T-Bone.
I think what we're watching right now is a one-for-one comparison with Brandon Nimmo. Brandon Nimmo was with the New York Mets early on in his career. He's continued to be so, but that's because of a contract extension that he signed last offseason. That contract, by the way, was worth 8 years and $162 million. He signed that starting at his age 30 season. He came up at the exact same time in his career as Lars Nootbaar did with the St. Louis Cardinals. And so it really comes down to, and by the way, he had the same injury issues in his career that we have seen so far with Lars Nootbaar. Games played early on by Nimmo, 32, 69, 140, 69, 55 in the 60-game 2020 season, and then 92 finally in his walk year, 150 games. But in those seasons, man, he was a really productive player whenever he was on the field. He was around a 25 to 30% above league average player in his prime seasons that he had. I think that's what you're looking for from Lars Nootbaar. So far in his career, 125, 115 OPS in his 2 full seasons that he's played in the big leagues. This guy is a really productive left-handed bat that can play all over in the outfield for you whenever you need him to. Brings everything to the table, including a remarkably high on-base percentage. I would do this because I think what you're looking at, if he continues to progress the way that we all expect, he'll probably get somewhere around $3 to $4 million year one of arbitration. Probably looking at somewhere close to $10 million in year 2 of arbitration, and then probably around $15 million in year 3 of arbitration. So over the next 4 years, you're talking about $25 to $30 million that you're going to have to spend. So the first 4 years of the contract, $25 to $30 million. So basically, you're asking yourself, do you think over the next 3 years he will make $40 or more million via free agency if you were to want to re-sign him at that point? I think there's an overwhelming likelihood that the answer is yes. You're seeing fourth outfielders, guys like Jock Peterson, getting $13 million per year. This guy's better than Jock Peterson. He has real defensive value. Guys like Randall Grichuk get this kind of money, guys. So as just a pure defender in left field, he's likely to see that kind of money. It is absolutely a bet on health. But even when he has not had the model of consistency health-wise, he's played 110 games each of the last 2 years. It's not like we're talking about a guy that's playing 50 games regularly for you. So I would do this. I think it's a really smart idea for the Cardinals. And the way that they typically do stuff like this, it's also a tradable contract. If you get 2, 3, 4 years into it and you say, hey, Chase Davis is available for us. Juan Bin Cho is available for us. Some of these other guys, their next first-round pick, maybe they draft an outfielder this year in the first round instead of a pitcher. Cool. If he's ready to go 2 years from now, you could also trade this Lars Nootbaar deal. I think it would be a really smart deal by the Cardinals to get it done early, but I'm always in favor of getting these deals done early because I think there's more value in doing so, certainly, than T-Bone I know you do in the past.
I understand the pushback on T-Bone's side because I do fall into the category of, look, if the dude's injured a lot and I'm paying a lot of money to him, like, that's a problem. I don't want to deal with another Tyler O'Neill situation where he's not available for me and I'm still, like, wishing on what he's going to become. But for $10 million, I think if you don't have Lars Nootbaar, you're paying more for that, for somebody to come in and provide what you hope Lars Nootbaar is and provide you good defense. And right now, I'm very concerned about the defense of the outfield for the future. I know you got Victor Scott. I don't know what Walker's going to look like in terms of improvement. At least if I can hope on the health of Lars Nootbaar, when healthy, and even if it's 130, 140 games, I know what that is, and I think it's worth more than $10 million.
Agreed.
And I think there's still more for Nootbaar to prove before you start handing him a contract extension, in my opinion, because right now it still is hope.
If you do have him prove that to you, the contract extension value goes through the roof. Like, if he has another year this year, production-wise, the way that he did 2 years ago, and he puts it together and stays on the field, sorry to cut you off there, T-Bone, but he's probably going to be getting $15 to $20 million per year because he's now looking at arbitration on the other side and because you've seen it. So his comparisons, instead of being compared to a Randall Grichuk like he is in this piece, now he's being compared 1-for-1 for Brandon Nimmo.
Yeah, I would play it out, though, because if he ends up staying healthy and the numbers do end up coming together and I'm sure he ends up costing you a little bit more, well, you know what? At least I know I actually want him here in St. Louis because he's lived up to the hype. If I sign him to a contract extension, he ends up just being kind of Randall Grichuk. I don't think it's a contract extension you look back on and say, oh, that was a bad deal. But it's certainly one that you look on and go, did we have to give him that contract? And that's where I think Nootbaar falls into right now because He's really proven it. I would give him credit for proving it last year. Now, granted, it was only 117 games, but the numbers were more consistent than they were back in 2022, where, remember, it wasn't until the second half till it became the peak Lars conversation. Yep. Can you put it together on the field for a full 162 and be healthy and put up these kind of numbers? And I still think, like, I'm willing to dream on what his ceiling is. Like, I'm not saying the Cardinals are wrong by saying we think there's more to Lars Nootbaar, because I think they're right. Is he an 800 OPS guy? Is he going to get to 20 home runs? What is the ceiling for him? I just don't think we know yet. I don't think you know, because he hasn't stayed healthy to prove it for a full season.
That's the thing. I like that. I like that we don't know what the ceiling is just yet, and that we're still talking about, hey, there might be some untapped potential in somebody like Lars Nootbaar, because that means we might be talking about a guy that could be really good, man. Like, he could be a 20-plus home run hitter that gets on base 35% of the time. I mean, if you're looking at guys that are around what he's doing right now in terms of the on-base percentage, like, you're talking about some really good hitters around the league, because he's right around that 350 OBP over the last 2 seasons. Some of the other guys that are in that range are Jose Ramirez, Rafael Devers. You're talking about Will Smith, Brandon Belt, Kyle Tucker, Corey Seager. Now, these players also bring a little bit more power to the table than what you have seen thus far with Lars Nootbaar, and that's really the question. Like, is he going to develop that power or no? Because if he's going to develop the power, you could see him being a $20 million plus player on an annual basis, and it's not hard to imagine. If he doesn't develop it, he's probably more in that $15 million per year type of a range. But I think the floor is what we've seen, and I think the ceiling could be a legit number 3 or number 1 hole hitter, depending on what the team and the surrounding that he's got. I would try to get a deal like this done this offseason if it was available to me. But frankly, if I was Lars Nootbaar's agent, I would recommend him not sign this contract. I would tell him, play it out. There's no reason for you to sign this deal. You're not hurting for money. You've got a ton of endorsements. In Japan, you're making God only knows how much money right now because you've become a superstar over there. Play this thing out. We'll get you the Brandon Nimmo deal when all's said and done. And through arbitration, because of what you're doing on base-wise, because of what you're doing with your defense and your base running, all of these different things, your wins above replacement numbers are going to be high, which means that through the arbitration process, you're going to make a boatload of money. Bet on yourself. There's no reason to sign a contract extension. So even if the Cardinals were interested in doing so, I don't think Lars Nootbaar's camp would be interested in doing a contract extension this offseason because it doesn't make sense for him. Because of the game split he's played over the last couple of years, I think this is lowballing what he is potentially going to make via the market. I do have a poll up on Twitter at BK Sports Talk asking Cardinals fans what they think about this. 68% of them, I'm surprised by this actually, have said yes, they would sign Lars Nootbaar to a contract extension this offseason if this is what the price was.
Oh, you're surprised by that. I thought it would be pretty heavily in favor of it because he's kind of a fan favorite. You know, I think he's become...
I thought because of your argument of the games played, it might have been a little lower.
Well, that's true. I just viewed it as he's one of those fan favorites. Like, you hear the Newt at every ball game you go to. I assumed a lot of fans would like to lock him up.
There's a lot of Newton in Busch Stadium.
Yeah.
Coming up in 10 minutes, we'll get to our latest edition of the 20 most important Cardinals for 2024. But coming up next, the junk drawer with a fight that I'm curious if Alex has any interest in watching. We'll talk about it next here on 101 ESPN. Matt Carpenter has hit a home run, ladies and gentlemen. The first lefty bat for the Cardinals to hit a home run so far this spring. I think we all had that on our bingo card, right?
Son of a. Now this guy's going to be on opening day in the middle of your lineup.
This is actually why they shouldn't re-sign Lars Nootbaar, probably.
True.
This is because Matt Carpenter's hitting a home run before you in spring. That's not a great sign.
Why you should trade Nolan Gorman for a good pitcher.
That's a good point.
Matt Carpenter can do what Nolan Gorman. In fact, he does more than what Nolan Gorman does.
Does he?
How many home runs has Nolan Gorman got this spring training?
You know what? Fair point.
When was the last time Gorman played? Did he play yesterday?
His back's probably hurting, like everybody on this damn
man. We can't
team.
watch any of these games. None of them are on television. So
don't let me.
Let him cook. Let him cook.
All right, let's dive into the junk drawer. Speaking of watching things, Alex,
get an entire network for your sport.
Alex,
sorry.
Are you going to be watching this Jake Paul Mike Tyson fight?
Yes, I want to see Mike. I would like to see Mike Tyson murder Jake Paul.
Whoa!
In the ring, it's how you talk boxing lingo.
Okay.
I want to see Mike Tyson destroy him because there's one individual that pisses me off more than anybody. It's Jake Paul.
So Netflix is going to be airing this live Saturday, July 20th. It's going to be at AT&T Stadium down in Dallas, a live boxing event between Mike Tyson and Jake Paul. I'm really mad at myself for caring about this. It drives me nuts.
Do you care about it, though, because you dislike Jake Paul or because you like Mike Tyson?
Yes.
Because mine's both.
Like, they have finally found the fight for Jake Paul that I care about. What? They finally did it. They finally found...
Because you want to see him get punched.
I want to see him get punched because he is incredibly unlikable. And also...
That's really saying something.
Mike Tyson... getting back into the ring. I saw him, what was it, the Roy Jones Jr. fight? That was an embarrassment to everybody involved.
That was some old timers going at it.
Jake Paul, man, like for being an amateur is pretty good at this. So I do think Mike Tyson will have to take this a little bit more seriously. And there's got to be a crazy amount of money that's involved in something like this for either of them to accept it. I hate myself that I care about it, but I care about it. It's so frustrating.
So I'm not surprised that Alex is into this because I know his hate for the ball.
And I love boxing. Like, I'll put that one out there, too.
I'm a little surprised BK's in on this because I have no interest in,
like... It's a gimmick. It's so stupid.
You didn't see Mike Tyson, like, when he was in his prime.
True, but do I want to watch Grandpa Mike Tyson fight now at the age of 57?
Grandpa Mike Tyson is 100 times better than Jake Paul.
Dude.
I don't know that that's true.
Oh, I do know that's true.
The only way this is...
Dude, one punch from Mike Tyson, you're going to crumble.
I'm not, at 50, dude, you start to lose that muscle mass. Like
he doesn't.
You look pretty good right now. 57, he won't. You know.
Have you seen Mike Tyson?
Yeah.
Dude, and Mike Tyson, I forgot where it was, but he did where it was measuring his punch. It's like 6 months ago. His punch was measuring close to the same number that it was when he was in the ring.
I hope he wins because that is when it becomes a great story. Paul beats him. I'm just going to go, he just beat the crap of an old retired boxer.
And that's what Jake Paul does. He beats either retired guys or like these celebrities, and he acts like he's this big-time boxer.
Nate Robinson, the
Nate Robinson.
Player.
He fought another... The big fight that was supposed to be him versus that Russian guy, and I think the Russian guy backed out of it.
Yeah.
Like... Mike Tyson still has it, and in boxing, you can act like you're blocking blows all you want, but one jab from Mike Tyson on your boxing gloves against your ribs, you're dropping.
So one of the first boxing matches that I really remember, like cognitively in my young life, was Lennox Lewis versus Mike Tyson. Now, this was not exactly in their primes. At this point, like, I didn't have enough understanding of the background of any of it to know, like, oh, these are two guys that are kind of on their last legs. But it felt huge to me, man. When I was like 10 years old. This was 2002. And so that is my introduction in a lot of ways to boxing. And so for that guy, 20 years later, to still be relevant in a very different way, obviously, in 2024 than it was in 2002.
Yeah.
It draws me in, man. Like, these are stars of my childhood. And so the same thing would be true if, like, I saw, Terrell Owens and Chad Johnson and Kurt Warner going out for a flag football game. It's stupid. It doesn't matter. But I would go watch because I'm connected to that from my childhood.
One of my favorite fights with Mike Tyson was him and Buster Douglas. And, I mean, it was a fight to this day that I still remember watching with my dad. And, like, the dude was unbelievable. And again, I still, even if you're slow, even if you don't move as fast as you used to and you are however old, one punch has to land. That strength doesn't go away.
Guys want a little news out of the NHL?
What happened?
No trade that's happened, but it is interesting and worth keeping an eye on. The waiver placements have been put in today, and Carolina has waived 3 players to free up around, I think it's $3.9 million in cap space. As I'm doing quick math.
Who would they waived?
They waived Ranta.
Wow.
They waived Tony D'Angelo.
Wow.
And they waived Brendan Lemieux. And now he only has an $800,000 cap hit. But those, I think, and I was trying to do quick math over here, I think it's about $3.9 million in cap space.
Can you say the names again?
So Ranta, their backup goalie, D'Angelo, the defenseman that was good for them like 3 years ago, and Lemieux, who's a fourth line forward.
Lemieux's $800K, 2.4. Yeah, it's about almost exactly 3.9, but that's for the full year. If you prorate it, it doesn't matter. $3.9 million is essentially what it is.
You're in Gensel sweepstakes. And
or
maybe.
Because they currently have $1.2 million.
The other one
they
that
just added 3.9, which gets them to 5.1.
The other one I'd keep an eye on, too, is do they go after Jacob Markstrom? I mean, their goaltending's been playing well, but do they go after a big goaltender? That's the other one that I'd keep an eye on.
And
you're not going to have to give up as much as you're going to have to give up to Gensel or Buchnevich.
Maybe that's the route they're deciding to go.
They might get both. I mean, if you're opening up 3.9, they had cap space to work with. You could go get a goaltender and then trade to get your forwards.
You got Booch is, what, 5.6? Is that right?
5.8.
So 2.9 is what Booch would take up, which is that $3.1 million.
And you've got to think you're giving up, if you're trading Martin Necas, you're giving up the 3.5 or whatever he makes right now.
Maybe they go get Gensel and Pavel Buchnevich.
Yeah, or the goaltender in one of those forwards. I'm telling you, man, like, that's the team you're going to move them to if you're the Blues, and it really comes down to do they get Gensel? Because if they don't get Gensel, I think Carolina has to hit desperation mode to go get a cup.
Coming up in 15 minutes, we will get into a game of Believe It or Not. 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line. If you guys have any scenarios, we will tell you if we are believing them or not here on 101 ESPN. But coming up next, we'll continue our countdown of the 20 most important players for 2024 with a player who isn't going to play every day, but will have a significant role. We'll tell you who that is next year on 101 ESPN.
Alex Ferrario with you to talk about my insurance agent, Tracy Bibb. Her and her team always taking care of you. And when it comes to your insurance coverage, man, you want somebody who's upfront. You want somebody who's always in communication with you. And you need somebody who's got your best interest at the front of their mind. And all of those qualities are what makes Tracy and her team great at Allstate. You get the personal attention that you need from your agent. You know what that's like when you don't, where you're on an 800 number. You might not have ever even spoke to your insurance agent when it comes to your coverage. But if something happens, and believe me, it will happen at some point, then you got to make sure you have that personal attention. That's what Tracy and her team offer you. Plus, the other thing, she's heavily involved in the community. She loves her clients. She's a part of the Purple Stride, Kids Rock Cancer, Little Bit Foundation. Tracy is making sure she's out for the community. So give her a call today. Ask her for a free non-committal quote. Just mention my name, Alex Ferrario. She'll walk you through the whole process, and she'll get you switched over with her and her team. It's no fib. You're always in great hands with the bib.
The 20 most important Cardinals for the 2024 season.
Number 16, Ivan Herrera.
And he smokes a single into left center field, maybe more than that. Walker will score. Herrera on his way to second. The Cardinals strike in the second inning. Hammered to left by Herrera. That one's going to short hop and score. 2 more. It's 4-0 St. Louis.
Ivan Herrera comes in next on our list of the 20 most important Cardinals for the 2024 season. Alongside Alex Ferrario and Tanner Hendrickson, I'm Brandon Kiley. Alex, we continue.
I'm so surprised Ivan Herrera got it. I was on pins and needles waiting to see who this one was.
Number 16 on our list of the 20 most important Cardinals is Ivan Herrera. If you missed our previous conversations, at 20 was Dylan Carlson. At number 19 was Zach Thompson. At number 18, we had Jojo Romero. 17 yesterday was Giovanni Gallegos. We continue with Ivan Herrera today. Alex, Ivan Herrera is not going to be an everyday player. At least that's not the expectation heading into the season for the Cardinals. But he is going to be the primary backup heading into this season for Wilson Contreras. And last year we saw that that was an important role for Andrew Knizner. He was a guy that did play typically about twice a week. And if Herrera is as good as the Cardinals are telling us they expect him to be, you could see him even more with Contreras maybe getting some more time at DH, for example. What do you think is the best case scenario this year for Ivan Herrera in your mind?
I think the best case scenario is we're talking 50-50 split at the catcher position between Herrera and Contreras. And I don't think that means you're taking Contreras out of the lineup. Contreras might be more of a DH, maybe use him at first base occasionally, but I think the bat of Ivan Herrera is going to force him into the lineup. And I was thinking of this when I was putting this list together. I don't believe it's outlandish to say that he is the second best bat coming off of your bench this season.
Ahead of Marp?
And Crawford. Can you believe that? But
No.
I mean,
I think that might be true, but I think it speaks to your bench as much as it does anything else.
that is a problem.
It's like I've been screaming about that
That
for a
is a
while.
problem. But, I mean, look, the upside is there. I don't think the upside is defense. Sure, it's probably going to look better than Wilson Contreras at times, but I don't care about Contreras' defense when he's going to be slugging 900 plus. Ivan Herrera, best case scenario is you're looking at somebody who could be seeing 80 plus games this season along with Wilson Contreras.
I think the best case scenario is you get like Andrew Knizner 2.0 from last year, and probably even better because I think there's more upside to Herrera. I mean, Knizner last year, you mentioned his vital role, and it's why we all put Herrera, I believe, in our top 20. Knizner last year hit 241 and had a 712 OPS with 10 home runs. Can you get that from Ivan Herrera as the guy that's going to be the backup that's playing probably once every series? Maybe in a 4-game set he ends up going twice. I think he can. I think he can actually maybe even get a little bit more. So I think best case scenario, You have basically what Andrew Knizner did last year in that backup role and maybe a slightly better version than him.
And I think Herrera might be a better bat than what Andrew Knizner was. Knizner at the age of 23, down in AAA plus AA. So this was the two spots combined. He had basically the same numbers at both of those levels. He had a 795 OPS, but a lot of that was because he had a really good on-base percentage. He hit for a lot of average. He was a 315 hitter that year. His slugging was around 430, most of that coming in AA. AAA was about a 400 slug percentage guy. Last year, at the same age, Ivan Herrera spent the entire season at AAA. And at AAA for the Cardinals, hit 300, so similar in terms of that batting average, had a 450 on-base percentage. So he took his walks. He was super disciplined at the plate and slugged 500. Ivan Herrera... Listen, I was surprised, as everybody else was, when the Cardinals decided to non-tender Andrew Knizner. I still think it was the wrong decision. I think they could have traded him and gotten an asset in return, but the money was too important, apparently. I do understand why they decided, hey, it's time. There's nothing left for Ivan Herrera to prove down in AAA. When you have an OPS near 1,000 as a catcher at that level, and they believe that your defense has taken that next step, the obvious next step is, hey, he's got to be at the big leagues for the entire year this year, and let's see what it looks like at the big league level. Best case scenario to me, he is in the exact Andrew Knizner role from a year ago, and it's just a better version of Andrew Knizner. You don't miss out on the at-bats that you have with Wilson Contreras when Herrera is in the game. I actually think he could be a better hitter in the big leagues than what Knizner was last year, because if you remember, a lot of Kisner's power production came off of position players. I think he hit 3 or 4 home runs last year off of position players.
They still count.
They do technically, but if you look at his numbers when he didn't hit against position players, they were basically the same as they were a year ago. So I think that's the best case scenario. What do you guys view as the downside, though?
I think it's the flip of this. I think he's the worst case scenario is he is a worse version of Andrew Knizner. He provides nothing. If the bat doesn't play, the defense doesn't look good, he is a sole AAA catcher. And I think that's bad for the Cardinals, because I believe the hope was you signed Wilson Contreras and that Ivan Herrera could kind of force him out, and Contreras was a DH for you in the back half of that contract. I don't know what they have in their system in terms of catchers that could be on the fast track to the major leagues other than Ivan Herrera. So worst case scenario is you look at this.
They'll bring back Tres Barrera. Great in the room.
He was a good locker. Is he good buddies with Nolan Arenado?
I would assume so.
God, or Paul Goldschmidt, one of the two.
I know he's not Contreras' friend, because Contreras did not expect to see him there.
Yeah, well, Contreras is kind of like BK. I don't know how many friends he has.
Touche. Wow. Go ahead.
That was it. I just had to get my punch in at the end.
I like it. I think worst case scenario is you don't have a guy that can split with Contreras. And whether that is his bat doesn't play or it's his defense that doesn't play, you have to use Contreras more as a catcher than they want to. And I think ever since Yachty got to the back end of his career, they've realized, the Cardinals have as an organization, that you need to treat catchers like goaltenders, essentially, which is you can't just ride them into the ground. They need to have time off because it's such a grueling position. So worst case scenario, Herrera, whether it's his offense or his defense, doesn't play at the major league level, they have to ride Contreras behind the plate more than they want to.
The defense is what I'm curious about. I don't really care about the offense this year from him. I think it would be nice if he can be what they're projecting him to be, and what he was last year down in AAA suggests that he's got that in him. The bat could potentially play in a big level at the major leagues. The defense was my biggest concern, though, early on, and it was the Cardinals' biggest concern. You remember he came up and had like 5 games with the Cardinals, and they were like, yeah, no more of this. Please go back down to AAA. You are not ready. What your preparation looks like right now has got to improve before you get another opportunity at the big league level. And last year, anytime you would talk to the Cardinals, whether it was on the record, off the record, somewhere, they would say, hey, we think Ivan Herrera is now ready. Like he has figured out how to prepare. He's different mentally than he was the last time that he was up. So that's what I think the worst case scenario is that he reverts back to some of those old habits, doesn't look as good defensively behind the plate, and now you have a backup to Wilson Contreras who you don't trust. And in that scenario, I don't know what they do. They probably do turn to whoever the equivalent is this year of Tres Barrera.
Paez is on the 40-man.
Or they go to the free agent market and bring somebody in like they did with Przinsky.
And you're stuck And when you have somebody like Wilson Contreras, who's not going to catch 140 games for you the way that Yachty used to, you need a solid backup catcher. Doesn't need to be great, but he's got to be solid. That's the risk of going with somebody that has very limited opportunities at the big leagues. I don't view that as realistic, though. I think Ivan Herrera is going to be fine for the Cardinals this year. I don't think that I have a lot of concerns about him behind the plate. I just want him to be solid. And if you can be that and start 60 games for the Cardinals this year, 55, 60 games, I think they'll be A-okay. I feel like this is exactly where he probably should be on our list of the 20 most important Cardinals going into the season. What is at stake for him, though? Do you guys view this as a potential fork in the road moment? I know, T-Bone, you've talked a lot about what his role can be in the future. What's at stake for Herrera this year in your mind?
Yeah, I think I wouldn't call it a fork in the road moment in terms of like he's a Cardinal next year or he's not a Cardinal, but I think it tells you what his ceiling is for the Cardinals. I think if he has a great year, the defense plays as well as they've talked about and raved about when he got back up with the squad last year down the stretch, and the bat plays and is better than Kisner's, and maybe could look a little bit like Contreras' bat, I think there's a chance that it won't happen this season, but there's a chance that they view him as the starting catcher come 2025. Worst case scenario, like he ends up going the other direction, they go, you know what, that's our backup. Contreras is going to be our catcher throughout this contract. Best case, though, I think he takes that role and they either move Contreras to a full-time DH / backup catcher, or they look to trade his contract away.
I think what's at stake here is your future in St. Louis, because if it goes poorly, I think he could get traded. And I think he could get traded by the deadline, because if you're the Cardinals, you're probably thinking, well, he didn't work here. Somebody might take a chance on this and we could get something that we desperately need. But if it does work out, I mean, I would imagine he's talking about being your everyday catcher moving forward, because his defense is going to be better than Wilson Contreras.
Yeah, you could see something where in 2025, the roles flip, where that season your primary DH is going to be Wilson Contreras, and he is your backup catcher that starts once every 3 game set as opposed to the 2 every 3 games.
And I don't think that's a bad thing for the Cardinals if both bats play like that. You're talking about that because that gives you a trade chip if the Nolan Gorman experience doesn't work, or you're talking about moving like an Alec Burleson because you got all these guys that have to be DHs.
It's past time for the Cardinals to make some decisions in this regard, and this is the year where I think they'll have to. They're going to have to make decisions on Lars, on Donovan, on Nootbaar, on Gorman, Herrera. You're going to finally start to see these guys in the roles that they were expected to play in when they were coming through the system, and that will determine who you decide to build around for 2025 and beyond. Again, at number 16 on our list of the 20 most important Cardinals for the 2024 season, it is Ivan Herrera. I'm out tomorrow, but the guys will be back in with their number 15 player on the list of the 20 most important Cardinals list. A very important pitcher for the team will be coming up tomorrow. They'll tell you who that is tomorrow here on BK and Ferrario. Coming up next, we'll play a game of Believe It or Not. T-Bone sings to you here on 101 ESPN.
Sorry we had to wait around to go live. I think he was watching a Chiefs
trade
video.
deadline week.
Believe it or not, I'm walking on air. I never thought I could feel so
Free, flying away on a wing and a prayer. Who could it be?
Believe it or not, it's just me.
314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line.
Sniffle over here.
For Believe It or Not. Guys, believe it or not, Chris Jones will be back with the Chiefs next year.
Believe it.
Really?
Yeah, you saw his picture he tweeted out. Andy Reid hugging him on the turf during the Super Bowl celebration. Now, if you're going to go teenage girl with me here for a minute, there were 7 dots.
I thought it was 5.
I thought it was 5, but I counted it was 7.
Really? That's a lot of dots.
And as Kelly Kapoor says in The Office, everybody knows what 3 dots mean. Everybody knows what 5 dots mean. I don't know what 7 dots mean.
I think it's farewell. I'm not going to believe this. I think he's leaving.
That's the thing. I don't know how to read any of these posts that he
damn
sends
dots,
out.
man.
I'm not going to believe the parade when he was like, I'm staying with the Chiefs.
I've said a lot of weird things under the liquor.
Yeah. I'm not going to believe it. I don't think he'll be back. His market's going to be incredible.
3 dots?
It's got to be done in the next 48 hours. If it's not done by the end of this weekend, I think he's going to the market, and I think he signs elsewhere. Say Houston would be my prediction.
I'm going to say Detroit. God, that would be awesome. Aiden Hutchinson and Chris Jones.
Can you imagine if the Detroit Lions were able to get both Chris Jones and L'Jarius Sneed?
Oh my God.
That would be amazing.
I will go out and buy a Detroit Lions jersey if that happens.
That would be a loaded team.
God, that would be awesome. If it was 3 dots, I would have said right now, confidently, he's back. 5, I would have said he's gone. I don't know what 7 means.
Alex, what do you got for us?
Believe it or not, guys, the players that the Blues acquire for a trade of Pavel Buchnevich will impact the team significantly next season.
So we're assuming that they trade.
We're assuming Buch is traded either at the deadline or the offseason. The pieces that return will significantly impact the team next year.
Believe it. Because I think even if they get a prospect in return, the prospect is probably somebody that's close enough to where they'll be part of the roster in 2024. So yeah, I'll believe it.
I'll believe it as well, because I think the prospect you get or the player you get in return could end up being someone that impacts the Blues. So I would say believe it. I would be shocked if it is a return where we look at and go, oh, the prospect's far away, and they end up with, 2 first-round picks that won't impact you next year.
I've said this kid's name a lot. This is the guy that I would say I'm targeting if I'm Doug Armstrong, this Nikishin. He's in the KHL, so I read a lot about him last night because I've gone down this rabbit hole. So he's under contract with his KHL team that I believe is up after this season.
I saw a report that they're not trading him, though.
That was, at least Friedman said that when they were talking about Gensel to Carolina. Okay. I wouldn't trade him for Gensel either because I'm not going to trade my best prospect for a rental.
Sure.
Am I trading my best prospect to get a player who's here now and next year? If I want a cup, I will.
Who's the player that you would most want for the Blues to acquire in a deal for Pavel Buchnevich? Like, of the teams that we have all talked about that are realistic as Pavel Buchnevich destinations, who's the player that you'd be most excited about coming back?
I think I would be most excited about, if it's this Nikishin kid, I would be ecstatic because
you'd have him, if
I would have him over Natchez.
If Carolina said you got to choose one,
I would have him over Natchez because here's the thing. I think I got a lot of forwards coming up in my system. Dvorsky, Stenberg, Snuggerud. And if I'm drafting in the top 10, now I don't have to worry as much about getting a defenseman. This kid might be ready to go next year. He's been awesome in the KHL and could be a top pair defenseman. I'll draft another forward in the top 10 that could be here next year in 2 years. I am fixing my defensive problem now, and it's not going to cost me more than $2 million to sign him.
Surprised you didn't say Nicholas Hague.
I like this kid more than Hague.
Whoa, whoa, whoa. Hold on, I need to sit down for a second.
Sit for a minute, please.
Paul,
are you serious?
I do. I like this kid more than Hague.
You've never seen him play. You like him more than Nicholas Hague. That's amazing.
I know. So, here's the thing, though. I know what Nicholas Hague is, and Nicholas Hague probably, at best, is a top pair defenseman, but he could be a second or third pair defenseman. Guys, this kid in the KHL, which is not an easy league to play in, especially if you're a defenseman. This kid is 22 years old. He's 6'3", 216 pounds. This season, he's got 17 goals and 56 points in 67 games, and he's a plus 32 as a defenseman.
I've seen better.
I don't think you have, man. I don't think you have. Yeah, over Haig. This is the guy. Someone brought up the New York Rangers. Yes, somebody said over Philip Broberg. Absolutely over Broberg. Someone brought up the Rangers. They got a kid, Brendan Schneider, who's another top 4 defenseman that you could look at.
Kakko's your guy, though.
Kakko's the guy from there, but the Rangers have made it pretty clear they're not going down this path again.
Guys, believe it or not, Blues fans...
Huh?
I'll stand up.
Wow. Okay. Believe it or not...
Nikishin. Sorry.
Believe it or not, if the St. Louis Blues don't make a trade at the NHL deadline, Blues fans will be disappointed.
I think disappointed, believe, yeah, but I
think they're going to be pissed because it's been hyped up so much.
I don't think you feel however you want to. I should say that on the front end.
Hey, man, you're making progress right now. That's good.
The reason why I wouldn't be super disappointed is because the moves that you can make at the deadline are still there for you in the offseason. So if this was a situation where they had a bunch of UFAs, pending UFAs that they don't end up trading, yeah, you should be pissed. Because that would suck and you're missing out on the opportunity to recoup some kind of value on a team that's not going to win anything meaningful this year. But like Pavel Buchnevich, if you want to trade him, you can still do that in the offseason. I don't know that the asking price will be quite as high in the offseason as it is right now, but you still got an opportunity there. Kyrou, man, you got plenty of time for that kind of a move. Saad, the defenseman, you've got opportunities. So I wouldn't be super worried about it. But yeah, I understand why you'd be disappointed because there's excitement about transactions. That's what we all get excited about.
And here's the thing, too, like, I trust Doug Armstrong in that sense of getting what is worth for that player. And as Joey told us, like, that's, as a GM, you got to make sure you're making those decisions so that teams don't take advantage of you. I can rest assured that Doug Armstrong said no at this deadline because nobody was matching the price that he thought Booch was worth. And I appreciate that out of my general manager rather than just accepting it because you're like, no, we're done with him.
Now, we have seen in the past, there have been situations where maybe he doesn't end up getting as much value for a player.
Or he holds on to a player too long.
Exactly.
Vladdy when he was the 40-goal scorer.
So that's the risk. The risk reward here is, yes, you still have an opportunity to trade him this summer, but if you get there and you're still asking for the same thing that you're asking for right now, well, teams will say, yeah, but then we had 2 opportunities to make the playoffs with him. Now we have 1. We're going to give you less because it's fewer opportunities to win a cup with Booch on our team. So that's where the push-pull comes in.
A little clarification on that Carolina Hurricanes thing that we brought up. So one of their reporters said that it sounds like Frederick Anderson is coming off of injured reserve, and he's about $3 million. So you're sending Ranta down to activate this goaltender. So still making some cap space for waiver purposes because you are cutting D'Angelo and that other player. Yeah. But Ranta goes down because it sounds like their goaltender's coming off of injured reserve.
Gotcha. The scenario I laid out, I would not believe it. I could see where some fans are disappointed because, let's just be honest, you don't add, you don't subtract, you don't bring in something that could impact the club even now that you're hoping is more of an impact next year as well. There's not a lot to look forward to in the second half of the season, if I'm being honest. So I would say there's probably going to be some portion of the fan base that would be disappointed, but I don't think it would be a lot.
314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line for Believe It or Not. Guys, believe it or not, Booch will be on the ice tonight for the Blues.
I'll believe it. That trade's not happening until, in my opinion, the final minute of the deadline tomorrow. That's going to be one of those that, like, you know, it comes through late in the waiver period or in the wire period in terms of NHL offices getting the trade details. That trade's not happening until late tomorrow afternoon.
That's probably right.
Yeah, I'm with Alex 100%, so not believe it.
Now watch when Buchnevich gets traded in 2 minutes.
From the 636, believe it or not, Kyle Gibson will still be on the Blues will still be on the Cardinals after the trade deadline.
I believe it. Even if you're bad, you're going to need somebody who can pitch for you. You're going to keep Kyle Gibson around because he does exactly what they said he was going to do, give you innings. And by that time, you're trying to tank, so might as well throw him out there for 7 or 8.
Wow.
Sorry.
I'll believe it, but I don't know what his role could be. Because if they're going to make any trades at the deadline, I mean, let's just be honest, they're going to be trading for starting pitching again. I don't know where you put him.
Who's better in the bullpen, him or Lynn?
Probably Lynn, because Lynn's got swing and miss.
Agreed.
So I don't know what Gibson's role would be. And they're going to wait as long as possible to where even if he does struggle, they would say, okay, it's time to cut bait because he's making $11 million, even though it is only a 1-year deal. I'll say believe it, but I just don't really know what his role will be.
Yeah, I believe that they're going to have him in the rotation after the deadline. I think he'll be your number 5 starter. Like Matt's go to the bullpen. Lynn, go to the bullpen. I don't know if Kyle Gibson will be on your playoff roster, I could see that being a scenario where they've got somebody else that ends up taking that role to be a bullpen arm for them, like maybe Liberator, Thompson, Lynn, Matz. All of these guys are on the roster over Kyle Gibson, but yeah, I would be pretty surprised if they trade him at the deadline, barring something unforeseen. And final one here, guys. Believe it or not, Matthew Liberatore has already been pigeonholed into a bullpen role for the Cardinals, as today he pitched out of the bullpen for the St. Louis Cardinals.
I'll say believe it. I think right now he would be 7th on their depth chart in terms of starting pitchers. He starts if Zach Thompson gets hurt.
I'm not going to believe it. I'm not going to declare it yet. I think it's probably the role he'll end up in, but he's still stretched out. This was one of those where it ended up working out this way because they're moving Lynn and Matz over from the backfields to here. So he's still stretched out. I think this will ultimately be his role, but I'm not going to declare just yet that he's going to be a bullpen arm.
I'm believing it. I'd be shocked if he's a starter for you this year. I think he's going to be in your bullpen on opening day.
Someone just texted and said, "Did you guys see that O'Neal's already hurt his calf?"
Did he really?
Is he hurt already? Was it on turf? Because that is tough on him.
Is it turf in spring training?
I do. Like, that sucks, man. Getting hurt is terrible, but it's also
Is it really hurt, or is it just Tyler O'Neill like, hey, I'm not feeling it right now?
He's not traveling with the team to the DR because he's hurt.
Wow.
Calf tightness. Doesn't sound like this should be long term, but the Red Sox injuries continue to mount. O'Neill had a good start to camp. He was 4 for 14 with a home run and 3 RBIs, but he's expected to play when the team is back from the Dominican Republic.
Where have I heard that?
Why are they going to the DR?
They're playing games all over.
I was going to say they're playing in
spring
Tokyo.
training.
They're playing everywhere.
Well, that's the regular season. I didn't know they were even going to the DR.
All right, coming up next, we're going to dive into some NFL quick hitters, some big news around the NFL here on 101 ESPN.
Jared Hendricks here with a Sports Center update brought to you by Soliga Heating and Cooling. Earlier today, the St. Louis Blues announced that they have signed Oscar Sundqvist to a new 2-year contract extension worth $3 million, which carries a $1.5 million AAV. And the Blues back in action tonight as they visit the New Jersey Devils. We'll have pregame coverage starting at 5 o'clock with Alex Ferrario and Joey Vitale. Then Joey will join Chris Kerber for puck drop at 6. And the Cardinals currently taking on the Houston Astros in spring training action. They trail 4-3 heading to the bottom of the 6th inning. The Sports Update is brought to you by Soliga Heating and Cooling, an independent American Standard heating and air conditioning dealer.
All right, let's dive into some NFL quick hitters with Alex and T-Bone on BK. Alex, earlier today, it was announced that the New Orleans Saints are likely to release Michael Thomas. At this point, does Michael Thomas have a place in the NFL?
Somebody's going to give him an opportunity. Somebody's going to give him an opportunity and say, hey, if you can give us 8 good games, good enough for us.
Who is the comparison for Michael Thomas?
Antonio Brown?
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
Antonio Brown was amazing for like a decade.
Michael Thomas was amazing for like 5 years.
For 4 years, he was one of the best receivers in the NFL, and then it was just
close to a decade.
enough. I mean, it's half a decade.
How good to round up
How
on
good
this
has your
show.
wide receivers been in Kansas City?
I mean, if he was still what he was back in 2019, I would sign him in a heartbeat.
You got to give him a shot to be somebody.
It is honestly crazy how quickly things just totally fell off a cliff for him.
Depending on how
he was such a good player, man.
Depending on how much money he wants.
Cooper Kupp.
Well, yeah, that's true.
No.
Can I give you a team that I'd like to see him go to? Look, you're taking a total risk on this. I would imagine it's not a lot of money. Detroit. Like, he being a deep threat.
His vibes, dude, they're so bad.
But you know what? Dan Campbell can put him in his place. Dan Campbell can put him in his place.
I thought Bruce Arians would be able to put Antonio Brown in his place. Well, Antonio Brown walked off without a shirt.
I feel like this is a move that you make if you're in a place of desperation.
Oh, Baltimore then.
That's the team that came to my mind originally.
Or the Chargers.
Yeah, I think you're right. It is a team that's desperate, that's looking for some weapons. But Baltimore was the one that immediately came to my mind. That you bring him in, and I don't even think you sign him to a guaranteed deal at this point. I don't think he gets
feel
that.
like the team that does something like this.
Oh God! Hey Daniel, we took away Saquon, but here you go. You can have Michael Thomas.
I don't even think he gets a guaranteed deal. I think it's just like a invite to camp.
Yeah. Other big news today in the NFL is that one of the other cuts, at least, the Broncos are releasing Justin Simmons. Now, this is a guy that's made multiple all-pro teams for the Broncos. I know safeties don't make a ton of news. It's a really important position, though, the way that teams are playing defense nowadays with the 2 high safeties. Justin Simmons is one of the better players at that in the NFL. The Bills also yesterday released Jordan Poyer, one of their better safeties as well. There's a lot of really excellent safeties on the market going into this offseason. Guys, where would you want to see, if you were just like, hypothetically speaking, a really good safety became available, you get to decide who he goes to, where would be the team that you'd want to see that
Houston
play?
Any incredible secondary defensive player, put him in Houston. Like I saw Jamal Adams was released, and I know he's been kind of hurt too. But when he's healthy, he plays well. Yeah. If I'm Houston, any cornerback, safety, whatever, bring them here because, God, my offense is going to be great. I just need to fix my defense.
Justin Simmons, Micah Hyde, Xavier McKinney, Geno Stone, Jamal Adams.
Detroit and Houston need to be all in this.
God, Eddie Jackson, Quandre Diggs. It's a really good safety market this offseason if you're looking for one in the NFL. Does your team need one, T-Bone, the Rams?
They need everything.
I think they're going to look, but I don't know if they'll be in that market. It's going to be tough for them. But
safeties and running backs, man, if you play those positions, you do not get paid nowadays.
No.
It's rare.
It's a weird. I was listening to the Rams podcast with Jordan Rodriguez yesterday, and she was talking about how weird that safety market is and how it always plays out, and guys end up going there and testing it. They might try to dip their toe in there, but I think that's like at the back end of their like needed list.
Another report that came out earlier today sounds like the Steelers are planning to meet with Russell Wilson before free agency. Your response?
Good for them. That seems to not be a good option, but I guess if you're Mike Tomlin, you've made magic out of nothing in the past, and you get there, but I don't know if I want...
Speaking of vibes.
Yeah, I don't want that guy around my team doing high knees on the team jet when we're trying to focus on a win, but look, if you're not going to...
that work ethic.
Do you? How many high knees you do?
Oh, not a lot. But if I had room, I would have done it on our trip to Nashville.
Fields, man.
That was my response.
Well, that's what I'm saying. But if you're not going to go trade what they're asking for Justin Fields, then this is going to be a cheap option. Do you get the best out of him for 1 year?
Can I be honest?
This stinks.
To your point there, and I think that's probably how Pittsburgh is thinking of, that's a hefty asking price. I would go, Mike, just want to point this out for you. That is the most important position in any sport right now in North American sports is the quarterback position. You shouldn't half-ass it and go sign Russell Wilson. You should be willing to pay
what if they're going to draft
Justin Fields.
What if they're going to draft Bo Nix or Penix Jr., though?
Yeah. Let me reiterate, Mike, that you should go focus and trade for Justin Fields.
I would actually do. I'd be cool with that.
That's what I think
they're
they're
not
going to
trade for Justin Fields and instead will draft one of those guys, cool. But in that case, don't sign Russell Wilson. Yeah. I don't know where Russ is going to end up, man. I am
really think it's
having a
Pittsburgh.
hard time finding a market for him as a starter. And I don't know who's going to bring him in as a backup going into this year.
I think it's Pittsburgh or Vegas. I think one of those two teams, and especially if Pittsburgh doesn't get Justin Fields.
If the Giants aren't going to draft one, that would be the team that I would point to.
Oh, God, you want Daniel Jones and Russell Wilson as the tandem?
All right.
Woof.
Alex, I know you're big on the whole J.J. McCarthy should not be a top 10 pick, the Michigan quarterback.
Yeah.
You're also extremely high on Jaden Daniels, the quarterback from LSU. Well, earlier today over on The Athletic, they had a mock draft that was done by 6 different executives that Mike Sando was able to talk to.
Last executive draft had Connor Ingram better than Jordan Bennington in the NHL.
At number 1, they had the typical consensus pick, which is Caleb Williams. Everybody believes Bears going Caleb Williams, USC quarterback at number 1 now. Number 2, they had Jaden Daniels. And 5 of the 6 executives said, I believe Jaden Daniels is going number 2 overall to the Washington Commanders. They had Drake May going 3, but Daniels at number 2. They did not have J.J. McCarthy going in the top 10. What do you think about that?
Good. I think that's the way it should be. I think J.J. McCarthy is a guy that you take a chance on and hope he's good. He is not a guy that you waste a top 10 pick on to change your franchise. None of those teams in the top 10 would make sense to draft McCarthy. McCarthy should be drafted by a team that he's the backup for a year, and then you could start talking about him. But I'm not wasting one of my picks, especially if I'm in the top 3, top 5, on a guy that I don't even know how good he is. He was good in college because of the team around him. So, yeah, I would absolutely take Jaden Daniels 2nd overall and Drake May 3rd, and then I'm not talking quarterback until I get deep into the 10s.
Yeah, that's kind of where I am. I think Jaden Daniels, if you're looking at that 2 pick between May and Daniels, I think the ceiling is higher for Daniels because he's more athletic than Drake May is. Drake May feels like a Justin Herbert type, and I think the ceiling for Daniels is like a Lamar type. And guess who's won 2 MVPs? Lamar Jackson. So I think Jaden Daniels is the number 2 pick, and I found it interesting that Ron Washington, who was on, I think it was NFL Live yesterday, who was the former head coach of the Washington Commanders, said he would take Jaden Daniels number 2 overall.
Ron Washington's
I was trying to figure out who you were talking about. I was waiting for it. I was like, where's he going with this?
Sorry,
what did Ron Washington have to say about Jaden Daniels?
Ron Washington is chiming in on the NFL right now?
I was like, I'm actually interested in his thoughts. What he's got.
Well, you know what? I thought I had a good point. Ron
You
Rivera,
did.
I was going to tinfoil hey, they've probably already had that internal discussion, but never mind.
That's hilarious. Ron Washington, Ron Rivera.
I mean, hell, the Angels need talent too, okay?
Very true.
That's why I was wondering where you were going
2
with
starting
this.
pitchers on the market, and look what happens.
The rewind is next.
Damn.
Hey, 314 days right around the corner. But the Battlehawks are next Thursday, March 14th at Ballpark Village, baby. I'm in vacation mode. I got 3 more minutes here. Celebrate all things STL with a free 314-day Battlehawks Town Hall event. Anthony Beck's going to be there. The Fast Lane's going to be there. It's 2 to 6 on 314-day. The event is totally free to attend, and it will feature fan favorite activities, ticket giveaways, exclusive merchandise, live music, so much more. The Mucinex is hitting. Get all the details right now at 101ESPN.com. It is presented by Sumner One. Yeah, I bounced around
I'm
that
just making sure like the words weren't like meshed together, or like writer typed them up wrong.
You know the Zach Galifianakis meme of like all of the numbers going around? That's essentially what the words were.
I don't think you should drive home right now, man. You need T-Bone to take you?
Oh, I'm not taking him home.
Oh, okay. That Mucinex is just hitting hard.
Prediction time. I won't be here tomorrow, but this time tomorrow, 24 hours from now, will be the NHL trade deadline. Will Pavel Buchnevich be moved before then?
I'm going to say no. I said earlier, I'm riding the fence. I don't think a team is going to meet the offer or the ask that Doug Armstrong is asking for, and I don't blame him for that. So I'm going to say no. But I wouldn't be surprised if he does.
I'm going to say no as well, and I think if there's a trade by the Blues, it's just Scandella, and that would be it.
That's my guess as well. I think if you set the over-under at 1.5 trades by the end of the day tomorrow, I will probably take the under.
I do believe there will be a surprise trade tomorrow by the Blues, though. I don't know who, I don't know what, but I do believe there will be a trade that you go, oh, wow.
I will be listening from 11 to 2.
You shut the hell up.
Just like the rest of you. There's some buzz about Toronto there.
Hey!
You know.
We were not getting into trade speculation here. None of those rumors mean anything.
He's Alex, that's T-Bone, I'm BK. The two of them will have you taken care of tomorrow from 11 to 2. I'll be back in on Monday.
No, he won't.
Permitting.
He'll see you
Here
Tuesday.
On 101 ESPN, the Fast Lane's next.